Hey everybody, welcome. Figured I'd start the stream a little early since this is the important week. Respond to some chat messages here and answer any questions you guys have, since I know, like I say, it's going to be a big week for everybody, so we'll see how it goes. Hey Jerry, Matt, Philip, hey, thanks for showing up to the stream. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you very much. Hey Bathory and Dracula, welcome to the stream. I appreciate it. So has everyone got their characters picked out that they're going to be playing for the full version release? Hey Vice, and I will apologize before if I butcher anybody's name, I apologize up front. So just forgive me. But has everybody got their characters all picked out for the upcoming release? I think most everybody knows that I'll be playing a Dragonborn Paladin for the full release. So Sir Greatsword, what do you know? That's the one that I always craft myself. So welcome to the stream. A Gnome Bard, awesome. That's a very popular tabletop combination as well. Hey Exip, hey Average Gamer. Sorcerer's a great class. It is so fun in tabletop. I'm not saying it's not fun in the early access. It is. It's a really fun class to play. It really turns into asking your dungeon master how overpowered you're going to be with doing the least amount of work possible. And the Ranger, yeah, I've got a soft spot for Rangers. That was my first character that I ever played in Dungeons & Dragons back in the day, and you guys are probably too young to remember. There used to be a cartoon that was on TV every Saturday. And the party leader was a ranger at that time. He had a magic bow that shot arrows. It was very, very cool. So I've got a soft spot for rangers. That's why my first playthrough that I live streamed was for the ranger. I really do like that character class. Yeah, the thing about the magic user classes is that they start out fairly slow, but by the end of a couple of campaigns or a few campaigns, magic users are just the most OP class in Dungeons & Dragons. They simply are. Yeah, I know. I am old, Dracula, so yeah, I get that, but there are several references that I've made throughout my live streams that certainly serve to date me from that, but yes, I've been playing video games for over 40 years now, so imagine humans for 4 Dragonborn Bards. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I thought I was a decent person at puns, but that's pretty good, Anger. An Average Gamer, it's really one of those things where there is no wrong answer. I've said this multiple times in comments, that your class, your race, there really is no wrong way to play it. There are things you can do to quote-unquote min-max, you know, your experience, but that's not really the goal of Dungeons and Dragons. And Larian has made some changes which are controversial as far as how ability points are decoupled from race and that sort of stuff. But it basically means that you're allowed to play any class with any race, and having more choice is always beneficial, especially to people who don't have D&D experience. So I wouldn't be too stressed about it. Go through your playthrough, and as you play through that first time, you're certainly going to learn things about your character that you chose and the abilities and how those things work. And if you like it, then you'll end up certainly playing a second playthrough, or you may stop your playthrough that you're on and start a new character at some point, if you feel that strongly about making changes. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Yeah, Joshua, I'm really anxious to see Karlach, or Karlach, however you want to pronounce it. But I'm really anxious to see how she plays as an origin character. I'm a little less interested in the Dark Urge character selection, but I am very interested in Karlach and how she plays and how they expanded upon her. We're going to see her in the early access playthrough here for the Bard. You've already seen her in the previous playthroughs, but they obviously expand on her origin quite a bit, making her one of the origin characters. So I'm very anxious to see what that interplay is like. We've seen some of the cutscenes with Wyll and her, and Will's very complicated relationship with his patron, and how that interplays with Karlach. So I'll be very anxious to see what that is like. Yeah, if you're gonna do the Dark Urge, then yeah, you're definitely playing neutral evil at the very least. The Dark Urge appears to be set up definitely toward an evil alignment. It's just whether or not you're playing that as neutral at the very least, or chaotic at the worst. So it just kind of depends. I'm anxious to see what it does, but that's never been really my play style throughout my years of D&D, so I'm much more interested in the other character classes and races that are new. But yeah, I may deal with a Dark Urge, like Bathory says, may deal with a Dark Urge character on a second playthrough or something like that. Yeah, Joshua, I'm not entirely sure what the ramifications are going to be. I'm sure Larian isn't going to make you go a certain way with it, but they are certainly going to push you that way. I know that there have been a lot of mentions about how there are choices that pop up and are registered that urge you to go certain ways. I'm sure there might even be a few that are unavoidable with it. It is meant to be an alignment specific type of character selection. So people don't normally tend to gravitate toward the evil alignment when they're playing games. And this is, I think, Larian's way of kind of saying, look, don't forget about the fact that you can really do some bad things here. You can really get yourself into some situations that are outside the norm, and that's perfectly fine in a Dungeons and Dragons setting. So I'm sure there might be some unavoidable ones, but I don't think they're going to necessarily force you to, go around killing everyone inside the city of Baldur's Gate or something like that. Vice, what's a good party composition for a ranger is the main? That's a kind of a loaded question. When you're in tabletop, it's a lot different than what we've seen so far in early access. But in early access, you have certain origin characters that need to experience certain things to hopefully progress their storylines. For instance, Wyll should be part of your group when you're going through the Goblin camp, so that he can confront a portion of his origin while in the Goblin camp. Things like that. Shadowheart being in your party for at least portions of the Dwergar fortress and the Grimforge, so that she can be part of exploring the Sharan ruins, that sort of stuff. So you're going to be changing people in and out throughout, you know, your video game playthrough, just to get them to experience those things. So, but as your main, if there was nothing else to do with the origin characters, my setup when I did the Ranger playthrough was the Ranger serves a lot of the rogue and or bard type of functions. They can pick locks, they can perceive traps, they can buff and debuff enemies in the party, and that sort of stuff, while also being able to deal damage, and pretty good damage as well. So they serve a couple of different things. They're not really your frontline tank, so I think having Lae'zel or somebody like that with you, or maybe Karlach, depending upon what her origin character's like, as your frontline single point damage dealer and tank, your ranger, then having a spellcaster, whether that be Wyll or whether that be Gale, and then having a healer of some sort. Rangers can do that, just trying to do all of that, healing, buffing, debuffing while causing damage is a bit much. So then having Shadowheart as your healer also can be a benefit. So that's what I chose, I think, when I went through it. The Bard, how's it with damage? And hey, Christopher and Mokeem and Hold, I appreciate you guys being here. How's the Bard for damage dealing? They are never going to be your high DPS character. That's just not what the class is really set up for. You can certainly have them do DPS from a secondary role, especially choosing things like the College of Valor to be able to help you wear medium armor, have shield proficiency, that sort of stuff. But they are never going to be your main damage dealer, simply because they're not exclusively focused on strength or dex, either using strength weapons or dexterity weapons to deal a lot of damage. Their main character trait is charisma, so they're never going to be your highest DPS characters. You can certainly go down that road, and tabletop gives you a few more options in doing that as opposed to the game. But the Bard in and of itself has always been envisioned as a support class, and whether you're just spellcast based and buffing and debuffing, or more damaging and melee based with those same type of abilities, it's really more of a support character that can also deal damage when called upon to do it. So I appreciate the sub, Mokeem. Thank you very much. Oh, looks like I just got a unrecoverable Vulcan error here. So I'll probably have to shut down the game here and restart it. So give me just a second. First time I've had one of those errors in a while. But it should be starting up again, so... And just in time for us to start the stream. So... Good timing there. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to today's live stream. Episode 4 of our Baldur's Gate 3 Bard gameplay series. I'm Commander Jorval, and I want to thank you for coming along on our journey today. So on some admin notes, I am going to pop this up here. As we all know, this is launch week, and Larian has come out for PC anyway. I apologize to all of you PS5 players. I don't want to forget that, but for PC, this is launch week. And Larian in the launcher has put up and this is going to cause me some issues because the launcher shut down. So let me get you. Okay, so here is Larian's launcher window, and this is the PC global launch times for August 3rd and the 4th. That is Thursday going into Friday, depending upon the eastern side of the date line. But these are the times that the game is going to be released. So keep this in mind as you're going through this week. There is a very old saying in the gaming industry. Never play on launch day. And the corollary to that is never play on patch day. First, it's a very large download. They recommend 150 gigabytes of free space. I think the full download is something like 78 gigabytes of space to download it, and this is one of the most hotly anticipated games in the CRPG industry. So you're going to get a lot of people trying to play this game on Thursday. You're going to have people carving out time specifically for it, and Larian is hopeful about the servers, and Steam is also, this isn't their first rodeo when it comes to games like this, but I would probably not get your hopes up too much about being able to log in, download the thing, and play as soon as the thing becomes available in your time zone. I just wouldn't. It's going to be stressful from a lot of different ways, from both Larian and Stream standpoint, and I would not get your hopes up too much. So good things can happen, and we all hope they happen, but like I say, I fully subscribe to the don't play on launch day mantra. I've been playing video games for a very, very long time, and this is just one of those things where I expect to have some issues. So everybody have some patience, and we'll see what we can do when this thing comes out. But yes, this is the full version release, Acts 1 through 4. The full version of the game, PC launch on August 3rd. So everyone be prepared for that. Obviously a big upcoming week for all of us. So for some other admin notes, I've been recently, just yesterday, having some issues with my UPS for some reason. So this game is not very resource intensive on the computer that I have. But it has been giving some power warnings from my UPS, and I'll get a really loud beeping noise when the voltage drops down. So if you do hear a loud noise and hear me panic for a little bit, trying to get up and get over to turn the noise off, I apologize, but we'll kind of see. I'm taking steps to get it corrected, just wasn't able to get it corrected yesterday, so we'll see how it goes. So I think from admin notes, that's about it. So moving on to our recap. So last week we finished up the Overgrown Ruins, and we did our level up with our characters. And we ended up in the camp, and that's where we're going to start this week. And we're going to try and make our way up to, well, we are going to be able to make our way up to the Grove of Sylvanas today and start our explorations through the interior of the Grove. Things have been going a little bit slower just because I am, responsive to your comments here and your questions as best I can as they pop up. So We've been taking a little bit longer to explain game mechanics and that sort of stuff, which I think is important when we're getting ready for the launch this week. So we'll probably have some more breaks in the action to go through any other game mechanics and things like that that I think are important to explain to help everybody go through it. But I think on that note, we'll just go ahead and continue, and we should pop up in our campsite, and we can go ahead and get started. So... yeah, Callous Thumbs, the original date was August 31st. They moved it up 3 weeks a while ago, and there was a 72-hour early access period to that when it was on the 31st for anyone who bought the digital deluxe version of the game. But then when they moved everything up 3 weeks so that they're not coinciding really close with Starfield, is everyone's assumption, they got rid of that 72-hour early access. So everyone's going to get access on PC to the game on the same date at those times which I showed earlier. So here we are in our camp, and as I mentioned last time, we went through and leveled up everybody. So our characters are all level 3 right now, and we're going to go ahead and get our long rest done. Yes, and for that,
salutations.
Yes, because Gale needs to get some spells back and that sort of stuff. So we're going to head over here to our traveler's chest and pick out a supply pack. And we will go back and take our long rest. I believe we got all of our conversations out of the way last time as well. Oh, and I did add a background and increase the size of the text. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. That was a comment somebody left for me, so I hope that makes things a little bit easier. So we'll go ahead and take our long rest. And go from there.
So, you know about these parasites. Will we survive them?
Only if my people extract them. The only other cure is the blade.
Okay, so you did see a cutscene there at the end with a cinematic that they're still that is being worked on for the full version of Astarion kind of sneaking off in the middle of the night. Now, Astarion is an elf. He's a high elf, so he does not have to sleep. Just like my character being half-elf, we don't have to sleep. So him sneaking around in the middle of the night but going off and doing something else while people are sleeping or meditating is kind of interesting. And you're going to learn more about that as we go through the playthrough here and we take long rests. His character development takes place mostly in long rests at this point in the game. So as we head back to camp, you'll see more and more of his character development. So just keep it in mind, and we'll continue on. So there are multiple different...
When you say we might be purified at your creche, what does that mean exactly?
Augusta will affix the Zafisk, the Purifier, to our heads. Its magic will quell the parasite in an instant.
And I try and pause and give you guys access to all that dialogue that pops up, just so you can get a little more immersion into what's happening. So there are multiple ways to approach what we're going to do next, and that's basically moving up into this area up here. So we're going to start just by moving around here. And this is where we rescued Lae'zel here. Okay, and now you can see we have a couple of branches. So going back down this way, and we're going to go this way just to open up the map a little bit. This way takes us back toward the Crash Nautiloid, where we originally landed, and the Ravaged Beach beyond it. So this is where you can exit the Nautiloid here by jumping over this fire surface here and exit out this way. If you'd like, we just chose to take a different way out. Okay, holding Alt periodically as we move around, moving our mouse around and just checking to see if there are any other items that we can pick up. We do have a marker on our map that we talked about previously. That's the hidden cache that we got from moving the incredibly hard to discover rock that was down by the Ravaged Beach. So when we're slowly making our way up here, and again, just holding Alt as we go, and you encounter a dirt
I hear
mound.
shouting up ahead.
This is meant to
Check
be...
it out, but be careful.
This is meant to be your first interaction and explanation for the dirt mounds that are in this game. This one you don't need to search for, you don't need to find it. You can click on it. If you don't have a shovel in your inventory already, there's one here for you. So if you don't have a shovel and you click on it, it's going to tell you you need to have a shovel in your inventory. And then you can click on this to get a shovel, and then you can dig up the dirt mound. Okay, so it's meant to be your introduction into how the dirt mounds work. So there's a trap disarm kit for Astarion and some gold. And you did hear them mention that they heard some shouting up ahead. And that's happening up here in this area. Okay, so we are going to go into hiding here. And we're going to make our way up toward this area. And we're going to open up the map here as we go, and you're going to start to see things appear on the mini-map as we get closer here. Okay, so you can see there's a way to get in around here. There's some high ground here, and there's another way to get around into here this way. So multiple ways to approach this.
Time to press ahead.
So here at this point, I'm going to split the group. And I'm going to use a combat inspiration on Lae'zel right now. Okay, and now I'm going to go back into hiding. And I'm immediately going to check Lae'zel's reactions. Again, there are multiple ways to bring up the reaction screen, but on PC, it's the L key. So here's what we have as far as our combat reactions go. And just like we explained previously with the Bardic Inspirations, with combat reactions, you want to do the same thing and have these normally ask you on what you want to use this on. Valiant Attack adds a 1d bonus or 1d6 bonus to your attack roll. Valiant Defense adds a 1d6 bonus to your armor class or a saving throw, and Valiant Damage adds 1d6 to your weapon attack. So you can tailor whichever one of these you want to use depending upon what situation Lae'zel gets herself into. Okay? So it's important to keep that in mind, that as soon as you cast it, you want to set up your reactions that go along with it. And I have another Bardic Inspiration, and this is going to be my last... I'm thinking. No, there is going to be another one. So I will hold that. Well, I've got two more.
Out of sight. Out of
Yeah, I think I am actually going to use or Combat Inspiration on Astarion as well.
That's a friendly
and I'm going to go to Astarian's reactions and set those up to be the same thing. He's going to have an integral part in this as well as we go, so he's hidden. I'm moving him up here toward the top, and now you can start to see detection cones forming out here. And you can start to see that there have been some NPCs that have shown up. So I'm going to take Lae'zel and I'm going to move her around this way.
Not one false move.
Okay, I'm going to get Gale. I think Gale and my Bard are fine right there, so I'm going to go ahead and move Astarian up just a little bit more. And you should get an autosave. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trigger this off with Lae'zel, I think.
Patience wanes.
So I'm going to take her out of hiding. I'm going to move her up here.
Open the bloody gate! Nobody gets in! Zevlor's orders! That pack of goblins will be on us any second! What's going on? Goblins are on our tail! Open the gate, Zevlor, now! You let goblins here? Where is the Druid? Please! There's no time! By the nine hells! Open the gates! Cannon! No! Shit! Form a line!
Okay, so Astarian rolled pretty well in his reactions, so he's the fourth person to go here. And a couple of comments there. In D&D, there is no such thing as over-preparing. It is just one of it. You're right, this fight is certainly not the most difficult fight in the game. However, I've never been the type to just Leroy Jenkins into something either. I'm certainly going to give myself the best chance to go in and avoid as much damage as I can while I'm doing it. But, and there certainly is more preparation that could have been done there as well. I could have buffed up with other spells and that sort of stuff in turn-based mode before I triggered that cutscene. So there's a bunch of things that could have been done there as well. But like I say, it's not that difficult to fight, but I'm going to prepare and hopefully minimize as much damage taken and people saved from damage as I can. So now we can look at what other options we have with our characters who are not in combat. You can see that Gale and my Bard are still outside of the detection cone here. So Lae'zel is in combat because she's been seen. So I'm going to move around here with Gale. And see if I can get Gale into a position here. So we have a Bugbear here, Goblin Brawler, Zakrug is the boss, and a Warg. So the Bugbear, the Warg, and Zakrug are your main primary target, so to speak, your big hit point, big damage dealers. The rest of the goblins are fairly low hit points. We have a Booyog over here, or a Booyog here, and it's not letting me target this goblin over here. And then we have our 3 NPCs who are in green who are marked as our allies in this fight. So where we are here, so for sleep, if I cast sleep, you can see it's gonna target up to 24 hit points. So I could try and put those 2 goblins there to sleep. I could also try and put these 2 goblins to sleep here. And I think that's what I'm going to do, is put these 2 to sleep up here as his opening gambit.
Good show.
Okay, so they both went to sleep. They're sleeping for 2 turns. So, and that put Gale into combat. Now for my Bard, going to do something very similar.
The lance board is set.
And then I want to see if I can get some damage with Cloud of Daggers here. And see if I can get it on all 3 of these characters here. Okay, so that put my Bard into combat and caused some decent damage here on all 3 of these, 2 of which are your main high hit point characters. So now everybody's into combat. So Astarion now is in a position where he probably does not have any more detection cones that are overlapping him. Okay, so if I look at a sneak attack ranged here on one of these characters, I need to have advantage against a target. Okay, so one of the easiest ways to get that is to use my one of my 2 bonus actions to hide. Because these 2 goblins are asleep, the detection cones disappear from them. And now I'm in hiding, and I can move myself up to the edge here. And now if I try a sneak attack ranged, you can see now I have advantage because I'm in hiding. So this is one of those important things to think about. If you're maximizing Astarion's damage, you're going to be trying to do that through a sneak attack. He has to have advantage to get that sneak attack, and the easiest way to do that is for him to be in hiding, but he can't be in hiding if there are 2 goblins looking at him. So that's why I specifically chose to put these 2 asleep, so that their detection cones disappeared. And now I can focus this damage elsewhere. So 6 to 21 is the damage that I have available. So this would be 9 on one side, 6 on the other. So this would be about a 40% chance, a 35% chance to kill the Bugbear, but it's going to be an 80% chance to kill Zakrug if this hits. Okay, so this is what's important about the same thing we learned about with Bardic Inspiration and Combat Inspiration, because it tells you that Astarion needs a 16 to hit. I rolled a 21, so I don't need to use my Valiant attack here. And this is why having the Ask dialog box is so important. It's because now I can save that reaction for a time that I might need it, because I do not need it here on this particular roll. Okay, so that got rid of Zakrug there. So now for Astarion, I've got a couple of options here, but I think what I'm going to do... If I do a short sword attack here with my offhand, it's 1d4. So I could attack here and get some damage, but that would wake this goblin up. So I think I'm just going to move myself back a little bit and use my second bonus action to go into hiding.
Let's have a little fun.
Okay, and now we'll end my turn.
Make way for the Blade of Frontiers. blade.
Okay, so now you see Wyll getting into the action here. And now we have Lae'zel. So for Lae'zel, there's a couple of different options here. You can see that she does not have enough movement to get there and still attack on this turn. Now there's ways around that, but you can see her movement is about 18 meters to get there. If you look at her and I'm looking to see where it is. There it is. Her movement speed is 9 meters. Okay, so as she dashes, that's going to use her action, and it's going to double her movement to 18 meters, so she'd be able to get right up next to the Bugbear here if she dashes. But she's not going to have an action at the end of that turn to do anything. However, she does have her action surge available to her, so she would be able to get her action back and then make an attack against the Bugbear. So there are a couple of other options here. That Bugbear is kind of at the edge right now of the Cloud of Daggers, so that Bugbear might take more damage from them if it tries to move forward and walks through the path of, or the Cloud of Daggers. It might also choose to go around the Cloud of Daggers. I might not take any damage. So one way or another, I think I want to dash and get Lae'zel in there. There are some other things about movement to be aware of, and that's that high strength characters can utilize their jump ability. So jump takes 3 meters of movement speed, but you can see she can jump 8 meters with it. Okay, so with a bonus action, she could jump all the way out to here without moving at all. Okay, so if she can jump all the way out here, then she has to get from here to here, and she possibly then has her action still available to her. So let's see if she can do that. That uses 3 meters of her movement speed. She's probably not going to be able to get close enough. She's not... Yeah, she's just outside of range. But that's an illustration of how you can utilize your jump ability to get you farther. Because normally she'd end up somewhere around here without using her dash action. Now she used a bonus action, she was able to get much farther close, or much closer to the target. So at this point, I don't have any real need not to use my action surge. I'm right near a big encampment where I'm going to get a rest. So at this point, I'm going to use a disarming attack here. Actually, I'm probably going to use a pushing attack ranged. It's got a 50% chance to hit. That would push him through the Cloud of Daggers again. The disarming attack again is 50%. Actually, let's just go ahead and try that instead. Okay, so it needs a 14 to hit. I rolled a 6. So here, my Valiant attack is going to get me a 1d6 bonus, but even if I rolled a 6, that would only get me 12. So it's pointless to use my Valiant attack here. So I'm going to not react, and I'm just going to miss this attack. Okay, so I can try it again. Okay, I need a 14 to hit. I rolled a 14, so now I don't need to use my Valiant attack. And now I have the... this is interesting. Oh, it's adding damage. Sorry. This is adding Valiant damage to the attack. So do I want to add another 1d6? I'm not going to. So because even with an extra 1d6, it wouldn't kill the Bugbear. Because he has 11 hit points left. Okay, so now I can end my turn here. And he's going to take an attack of opportunity and died because of it. Ray of Frost misses. Okay, Aridin comes in, and that Bugbear did take a big hit from the Cloud of Daggers. Okay, so now we're back to Astarion here. And these two goblins are still asleep for one more turn. But everybody is pretty low on hit points, with the exception of the warg. So I think we have some opportunities here. And it looks like he got knocked out of hiding because of the movement of this Bugbear here. So I'm going to go ahead and use one of my bonus actions to hide. And now I can see my detection cones. And I think I'm going to move him. So let's see, this goblin is... Which one is he in the list? He's the very first one in the list. This goblin here's the second one in the list. So these two are going to wake up and be able to attack on the next turn. So I think I'm going to focus my attacks here on the two that are downed. So my main hand attack is going to do 4 to 9. They're sleeping, so I've got advantage on the attack here. But I'm still going to do a melee sneak attack, and I'm going to get rid of dual wielding here. So that I'm just going to use my first sneak attack here. Okay, that gave me a crit on this one. And now I'm going to jump down here. That's going to use my second bonus action. I don't think I can get close enough. To the Bugbear to attack it. No, I can't. Okay. So I think we're just going to get some offhand attack damage. I would love to be able to get down here and offhand attack the Bugbear. But I'm just barely short on movement to get down there. So I think I'm just going to get some damage on this goblin here. Okay, so I needed a 13 to hit. I rolled a 23, so I don't need to use my Valiant attack. And I got a crit, which is great. So now the goblin has 1 hit point. So if I add Valiant damage to it, I'm going to get a 1d6, so at least a 1. So that's going to kill the goblin tracker. Okay. I rolled a 3, and that ends up killing it. So that means the 2 goblins who are going to be attacking next before Astarion are now dead. This one is over here. Yeah, right over here. And is not engaged with me. They're engaged with Wyll. So okay, so we're in a really good position here. So we have the warg left. So we're going to move in.
Very well.
And see if we can cast Dissonant Whispers here. We'll just leave it at level 1. Well, we could upcast it and gain an additional 1d6. Because again, I'm right next to an encampment where I'm probably going to be resting anyway. But I'll save that. I'll save that level 2 spell. Okay, so now the warg is frightened as well, and we learned about that last time. The frightened condition, they can't move. It's got disadvantage on its attack rolls for the next 2 turns, which is incredibly powerful. It's been dazed due to the attack by Eridan, so it's got disadvantage on its wisdom saving throw, which is how I knew it was going to be much easier for Dissonant Whispers to land, because Dissonant Whispers is a wisdom save. But because he's dazed, he has disadvantage on that, so it was much more likely to land. So that's how you can kind of combine their states, their statuses, with making it easier for other spells to hit and do damage as you're going along. Okay, so now Lae'zel, and she has to move around the spell here. And I think what I'm going to have her do is, again, kind of... So the Bugbear is going to be next to attack. Here, it's only got 1 hit point, though. And we're going to have both Zevlor and Eridan attacking next. So I think they're going to be able to take care of the warg. And then I would have Gale. So I'm going to actually focus my attack here on this Bugbear and remove him from the fight.
I will not know failure.
Okay, so I need 14 to hit, rolled a 24, so I don't have to use this. And that removes the Bugbear. So now I opened up these 2 characters to attack the warg. And since that Bugbear's dead, Gale is now going to get a chance to attack the warg, as well as Ramira before the warg gets a chance to attack. So that removed a target that was going to be able to attack somewhere in between us, and this allows us more attacks against the single target warg. And there you go.
That was the last of them. Inside! All of you! More may follow! Open the gate!
And you want to make sure that Wyll follows in, and it looks like they fixed that bug because Wyll is going into the encampment. So now I can remove the concentration for Cloud of Daggers here, and I can toggle everybody up, and we can do some quick searching of the characters out here. And I probably don't want to do it with my Bard. I will do it with Lae'zel because she's the one that's going to be carrying most of these weapons for now.
Without delay.
So the question from Justin is, what settings make me able to see the pop-up? That's what I mentioned right before we started. When you cast Bardic Inspiration or Combat Inspiration on somebody, for instance, Lae'zel has Inspiration on her right now, you can hit the L key and it brings up the Reactions menu. Toggling the Ask button here, or putting a check mark in the Ask checkbox, is what pops that dialog box up to allow you to choose when you want to use your Inspiration and when not to use it. Otherwise, it's going to use the first one that it has available to you, the first opportunity it gets. So if you get attacked, it's going to use Valiant Defense regardless of whether you need it or not. It's just going to do it. So having the Ask buttons checked is always much more beneficial to allowing you to determine how you want to use those inspirations. Okay, so now we'll go back down here and we'll finish doing some searching. And I do not use Karmic Dice. I don't know if in patch 9 they were still broken or not, but Karmic Dice were broken in previous patches, in that they were giving the enemies much better attack rolls than you. So Karmic Dice is supposed to balance that out so you don't get a whole bunch of failures in a row or a whole bunch of hits in a row. But the game just was not working that way. So I don't use karmic dice here in my playthroughs. Hopefully that's all been worked out and fixed at some point, but it was still broken last I had checked in the early access. Okay, and we're just picking up some items here that we'll be able to sell. Okay, so looking at our inventory, we picked up something that's very, very important. And that is the Gloves of Power. This is one of the first magical items that you run into in the early access, if you're following through how the game directs you to go. But it's something that you're probably not going to be able to use for a bit. And that's because they come with an effect called Absolute's Bane. So if you equip these gloves and you hit somebody with a weapon attack, it receives a 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws, which is what the Bane spell does. So you could basically inflict Bane on a target either using a ranged attack or using a melee attack. However, if the second sentence says that the same penalty applies to you if you are not branded with the Absolutes brand. And you can't get the Absolutes brand until you go to the Goblin Camp, which is, give or take, 2/3 of the way through early access. So you want to keep these gloves. They're very, very useful to be able to inflict Bane on a single target that you attack, but you're not going to be able to really utilize them until you get a brand, and that's not going to happen for a while. So good thing is they're fairly light, so they're not that hard to just carry around for a while. So just keep that in your mind that you want to use those, but you're not going to be thinking about them at this particular moment. Okay. So the Watcher's Guide we picked up previously, and we just didn't go through the effect of it. This is a 1d8 spear. Now, spears can be thrown. They're also versatile, which means you can use them two-handed or single-handed, and that's what the damage numbers indicate. The 1d8 is for two-handed usage. The 1d6 is single-handed usage. So if you're using a shield, your damage is going to be 1d6, not 1d8. If you're using it without a shield and you're two-hand wielding it, then you're going to do 1d8. That's what the versatile trait means. Okay? It can also be thrown, just like it says. You can throw a spear at somebody as a ranged attack. The effect that the Watcher's Guide has is Death's Promise. So when you miss your attack, then your next attack roll against that same target, you have advantage on it. So if you go and attack somebody and you miss, you go right back and attack that same target the next turn, and your attack's going to have advantage, which is hugely beneficial for you as you're going through. So looking at my characters and who's proficient in it, so for here, looking at my Bard, so my Bard, because of my College of Valor Bard, I'm proficient with all of the weapons and everything except heavy armor. So I could certainly utilize that. However, you need to look at your other characters to see Gale is not proficient with a spear. Lae'zel obviously is, but she has one of the best early access weapons in the game. Astarion is proficient with spears as well. So I could utilize this on him. However, it does say in the description that this can't be dual wielded. So I would lose the opportunity to do dual wielding attacks with Astarion if I had him equip the spear. So for now, I'm using a rapier, which is 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage. Watcher's Guide would be 1d8 piercing damage. Okay, so I would be losing a little bit of 2 hit and 2 damage because this is not a finesse weapon. Finesse is using my dexterity to determine 2 hit and my damage. the Watcher's Guide as a spear is a strength-based weapon, and my strength for Jorvalen is giving me +0, whereas my dex is giving me +2. So even though I would have that benefit of Death's Promise, I'm going to be losing damage and to hit if I equip the Watcher's Guide. So I'm not going to be using the Watcher's Guide in this playthrough. So, but just wanted to explain it. So now we're going to head into Sylvanas' Grove here. And this is where we're going to spend the large majority of this playthrough, because Sylvanas' Grove is a rather large area to explore. You can pick up a lot of quests in here and have a lot of encounters, and we're going to go through most of them.
Children here, you fool!
We was running for our lives.
You led them straight to us, and you let them take the Druid too? Unbelievable!
Okay, so here you can see we have a Bardic Persuasion option here, and you can see because of our character choices for our proficiency, we have Persuasion, Proficiency, and Expertise, and we're getting a +3 from Charisma. The goal here in this, and you can again play this however you want, but my goal here is to avoid a fight between these two. And one way or another, you're going to have to make a check to try and convince them to not fight each other. If you pick through one of these first options up here, you're going to have another one of these checks later on to avoid combat. I can just try and avoid it here because I'm a bard, and I get this special persuasion option here. So this is what I'm going to try and do. So it's a DC of 15. I'm getting a total bonus of 7 here. So I need to roll an 8 or better. Good for our very first roll of the live stream.
And who the hell are you again?
Show some respect. This woman saved your pathetic life.
Well, I didn't ask for any goddamn help.
Please, you were begging me to open the gate. Anything to save yourself, you coward!
Okay, so we failed our insight check, but that would give you another option up here at the top. But I do have another persuasion option here to avoid this fight. Okay, and again, another DC of 15.
You're right. There's too much at stake.
Worried about your precious hides, the both of you.
Enough! Squabbling is pointless. The goblins have found us.
At least we agree on that.
Okay, so you can see right off the bat how important our proficiencies were in those conversational choices. Having that extra +2 expertise for persuasion allows us to get through some of these high difficulty conversations a lot easier. It's the same thing with Astarion and he's still outside. Because reasons.
Go.
Is he stuck? Wow. Okay. He was actually stuck. First time I have seen that. Early access. So, again, game is early access.
No one back home will ever believe this.
Okay, but much like Astarion's lockpicking or sleight of hand proficiency helping him with lockpicking and his expertise, the same thing I have with my conversations. So you can see that Lae'zel wants to talk here.
must move quickly and find this Zoru.
Okay, so we have an option down here because of our race and sub-race selection.
Then lead the way. You fit in here more than I.
But Lae'zel doesn't care about helping anybody else. All she wants to do is find her creche. So if you give her an answer that's going to say, let's just go find this Zoru person, she's going to approve of that. If you'd have selected the option at the bottom, you wouldn't have gotten any approval from her. Okay, so now we can go up here and we can speak with Zevlor.
Forgive that display. Aradin's a blowhard, but that's no cause for me to join him. Thank you for your help out there. I'm Zevlor. Well met. I should warn you, visitors are no longer welcome in this grove. Whatever your business, I'd see to it quickly. The Druids are forcing everyone out. This attack will only strengthen their resolve. There have been several attacks by different monsters. The Druids blame us outsiders for drawing them here. Nobody's welcome anymore. They've started a ritual to cut the grove off from the world outside. We can't stay, but we'll be slaughtered if we leave. We're no fighters. I've tried. Korga, their new first druid, won't even see me. You, though? I know it's not your business, but she owes you for saving this place. Perhaps you could persuade her. For more time to prepare, if nothing else.
Really? We're messengers now.
We'd owe you a great debt. If we're forced to leave now, we won't make it to the city. You'll find the Druids at the heart of the grove. Please, make them see sense before more lives are lost.
Okay, so we learned quite a bit there. We learned that the Tiefling group here are refugees. They've taken shelter in here in the grove to avoid goblin attacks on the road to Baldur's Gate. But that's where they're trying to get to. And that's going to be the ultimate goal of the characters that you're going to encounter in this section of Sylvanas' Grove. So we're going to do a bit of exploring this way first, because there is another encounter that we want to get out of the way over here. So we're going to move this way. You can see that encounter's up here. There's a Bugbear assassin up here. So we want to make our way up here. We're opening up some of the mini-map as well, so you can walk out here and see the areas that we've already encountered. That's the waypoint that we opened up for Sylvanas' Grove. And this is the gate where we just had our combat here. Okay, so from here, I'm going to move in here with Astarion. And you can see the Bugbear Assassin is waiting in hiding here. And he's going to trigger, and he's going to try and move up and kill Nadira. And our goal is to try and prevent that. So there's only a 36% chance to hit here. If I do it, I do have an arrow of acid, and that's going to increase my chance to... I see, so if I get closer, that hit chance, yeah, because he's outside normal range. So let's just move Astarion up here, and I will get ready for a ranged attack as soon as the Bugbear starts moving. Okay, so he's surprised. So I did get my one attack in there before the encounter started, and now I can run this just like any other encounter. So The first thing I'm going to do with him is go into hiding. And because of where he's sitting at, the detection cone should miss me here.
Time for a new approach.
Okay. So now that I'm in hiding, I can do a sneak attack ranged for an 84% chance to hit, 6 to 21 damage. Okay. So we got 19 points of damage just in that. So now let's see if we can
Assume nothing.
put somebody else into hiding.
In Flacket's eyes only.
And now you can see the detection cone. So I was not outside of his detection cone range. That's why it gave me that hide check as soon as I put him into hiding. So now I can avoid the detection cone here. And see if I'm able to get a ranged attack here or if the rocks are in the way. So I can still get an attack here, so a 75% chance to hit. It's going to do a minimum of 2 damage, so a 75% chance to get a kill. And she's got advantage because she's in hiding. Okay, so I needed a 14 to hit, rolled a 21, don't need to use the attack again.
You have good timing. Never been much of a fighter, so wrestling a bugbear would have gone poorly. But you're not here for heroics, are you? Avernus's stench is all over your skin. Let me guess. Your devil mistress sent you to get her soul coin back. Too bad. I earned it, fair and square.
Now, the issue with not bringing my Bard up here as part of this is that Lae'zel was the closest one to this character when the fight ended. So Lae'zel was now entering into this conversation. I don't have the opportunity to change the conversation person once I'm in it. Okay, so in this case, she's going to have a deception check that she can make. So to try and get this coin from her, or we can continue this conversation and see if things change a little bit. And you can see that I have advantage on this deception check. I'm getting a -1 from my charisma, but I can add in the combat bardic inspiration for the deception check. So actually I think I'll try it first. So the DC is only 5. Okay, so it's going to use the Valiant roll to add 1d6 to this, and I've got advantage, so got a really good chance of passing this, but it's D&D. We're rolling really, really well today. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
That bloody Irenes! Devils just can't stand to lose. Here. Now go back to the pit that made you.
Okay, so we received another soul coin from that. So we're going to bring
All well that ends not as bad as it could have.
the rest of our party up here,
Is that blood? No,
and we can group
never
them
mind.
all up. Sneak attack seems too powerful. Sneak attack in tabletop is very powerful in and of itself. Being able to manage how hard it is to get into a position to execute a sneak attack is a lot different in tabletop than it is in this game. And that makes it arguably quite a bit easier to execute a sneak attack in this game than it does in tabletop. Now, Larian realized that through early access, and they've made some changes to how the hide mechanic works in the full version. So if you're threatening a character, meaning if you're within melee range of it, you're not going to be able to go into hiding anymore. It used to be, and it still is in early access here, that say if Gale is standing right there, if I was Astarian, I could walk here. And even though I'm right up behind Gale, Gale's detection cone is out front this way, so I'd be able to go into hiding with Astarion right behind Gale and then execute a sneak attack. Well, the full version is not going to allow you to do that anymore. Because I'm so close and I would be threatening Gale, there's a condition that pops up under their name called threatened. It's not going to allow you to go into hiding anymore. You're automatically going to fail that hide check, or it's just not going to allow you to use the hide button. It's going to be grayed out. I haven't seen it in person yet, but I know that people who have played the full version have mentioned that. So they're going to make it a little bit harder to get into sneak attack positions in the full version of the game. However, it is a very powerful mechanic, both in tabletop and in this version of the game.
Let's see.
You peer through the telescope.
Okay, so now I have some perception checks here. A nat 20.
You see a dragon circling like a bird of prey, hunting. The telescope points to the left.
Okay, you see the Ravaged Beach where we landed.
The telescope points straight ahead. The telescope points to the right.
And here you can see what's going to be Joaquin's Rest. I'm on fire today. Yeah, thanks for the jinx, Kenny. I appreciate it. Now my next roll is going to be a natural 1. Watch. I'm just joking with you. But yes, the rolls have been very, very good so far. So I'm waiting, like I say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop here. That's correct, Callous Thumbs. You can't, they are a very valuable currency, but they don't have a use so far other than an interesting dialogue option in early access. So, and did see I perceived the dirt mound, and again I moved in slow, short movement, so only my Bard got the perception check. If she would have failed it, I'd still have 3 characters that I could try and buff up and move into range to try and get that perception check easier to make. But here I passed it, so not a problem. Yeah, Eric, it's kind of interesting in what you can see in it. I'm expecting that there's going to be something else that you can view, or other dialogues that pop up within the full version with that interaction. So now we've kind of opened up this area. There is more you can go look at down through here, but we're going to go open and explore this a different way. And now remember, Lae'zel does not have Bardic Inspiration or Combat Inspiration anymore because we used it on that deception check that she had to make. So keep that in mind. I still have 1 Bardic Inspiration charge left before I need to take a long rest to replenish them. Okay, so now we have another way that we can go up around over here, and we'll go ahead and do that first. And again, holding Alt periodically, just make sure there's nothing laying around, moving my mouse around and checking if there are other things that we might be able to pick up.
At the ready.
Okay, and we have this bridge area up here that we're going to go take a look at here first. And here's Cannon, who died during the goblin attack.
I have something to ask.
Not now. Please.
Our Lady of Sil. Not now. Please.
Was that both Caldani and Ricky that said that? Okay, yeah, I just clicked on her twice.
Have some respect. This really isn't the time to talk.
Okay, so nope, it was just the same interaction there. Would you want a hardcore mode with no quick save? That's a very interesting proposition.
Glad you made it inside. Doubt we'll be safe here for long, though. There'll be more coming. Goblins hunt in packs. We might have to, but I'd feel better if we at least knew how many are out there. The sooner we leave for Baldur's Gate, the better. If the road was clear, 10 days walk maybe? But while the goblins are out there, it might as well be the other side of the world.
Okay.
Just a moment ago.
And then if you continue on around, this is the same pathway that took us up here to the Bugbear Assassin encounter.
We dig a hole and
to answer the question that was, I wanted to pause while we went through that dialogue.
We could say a prayer.
I think that a hardcore mode or an Iron Man mode is a very, very interesting proposition.
Yeah.
My playthroughs are basically that same way. So there are quick saves and there are manual saves, but I don't reload those saves unless it's because of a bug or something like that. However, playing this so that if your party completely wipes, your game is over or something like that. Even in tabletop, Dungeon Masters don't normally have something that completely ends your entire experience. What will happen a lot of times in tabletop is if you get a party wipe or something like that, you may end up in a different astral plane or something with your characters, and you have to complete quests to get yourself back to the material plane. Something that doesn't necessarily entail you just going, oh, well, we're done for today. We have to re-roll our characters and start over from scratch. So I think it's a great option to have. I don't necessarily know that in the spirit of Dungeons & Dragons there is something that equates to a hardcore mode. But I tend to play my live streams in some, that sort of way. The game, if you party wipe, it, lets you start from your previous save. Add in the option to not start from a previous save and just, it ends it. I don't see anything wrong with it. Certainly if people want to do it, more power to them. It's just one of those things that normally in tabletop, even your dungeon master wouldn't normally do. But yeah, I think having the choice there, if people want to do it, sure, why not? Unnamed, is there a chance you might start reading the selected dialogue options aloud? I put the text background, I increased the text size and added the background to it. Are the text options, and I want to hear from everybody, are you guys still not able to read the text options in the dialogue? If you're not, I can increase the text size even more. I'd prefer not to have to spend the time reading them if I don't have to. If that's the only way to let you know what I'm doing, then I will. But let me know in the chat if you can read them or not. If you can't, I can still increase the text size some more in my options if that's a problem. So again, I just prefer, there's so many text option selections, I'd prefer not to spend the time to read all of them if I don't have to. But if that's the only way to do it, I certainly will. So just let me know. So now we've cleared out most of this outside area, quote unquote, so we can start making our way into the main encampment here for the Tieflings. Okay, so we do have some options here for opening some crates. Okay. Alright, Unnamed, I don't know how you're viewing the options here. But if you can't read it, if you're on mobile device, like I say, I know you can pinch and zoom in and enlarge that section of the screen. Okay, that I can do. Okay. Yeah, if that's the issue, then that I can do. I can give you more time to read the options before I make my selection. So that I can do. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, that's not a problem for me at all. So most of these options in here are, again, going to be marked as steal. So looking through them, you can certainly steal out of them. You want to go into hiding and try and thief some stuff out of these, you certainly can. I just choose not to for most of my playthroughs. So first person we're going to encounter here is Aaron. And Aaron is our first trader that we're going to run into here.
Refugees, adventurers, no one in years, and suddenly we're overwhelmed. Well met. And thank you for beating back those goblins. Most brave of you. Is there anything you need? Act fast if you do. The ritual will be complete before too long. I know it's stressful.
Sorry.
More monsters seem to terrorize this region every
I apologize. the first time I say I'm going to do it, and then I forget about it. So I apologize for that. I'll give you. I'm so used to doing it. It's going to take me a bit to get used to that, but I'll let you guys look through these while I'm choosing what I want to do. So.
I pray no goblin arrow has grazed you. Nettie could put you to rights. She should be with the others in the inner chambers, but I doubt she'll be taking on new patients. The grove will be locked down soon. Just some bits and bobs I no longer need.
So the question was, yeah, no worries, Unnamed. I appreciate the feedback on it. The question was, how does stealing work in the game? Does every guard just know you stole something? Yes and no, meaning that if you steal something in view of somebody else, that person is obviously going to know that you stole, and they are able to alert other people to the fact that you stole something within a certain range of them. And sometimes that range can be pretty large and can involve a lot of different people, depending upon it. If you're in hiding and you get discovered, it's the same type of thing. So your goal when you're stealing is to always do it from hiding so that you're minimizing your chances of being detected. But then if you do get detected, it depends on what you're stealing. If you're just stealing from somebody, then that person is going to know. If they get upset, then it may devolve into a combat encounter. It might not. They might just be angry with you. And you're discovered, and that's just the end of it. And you're not able to trade with them, or dialogue options might change. It's a lot easier to steal in the sections of early access that we're dealing with right now versus what you might encounter when you get to the city of Baldur's Gate, because there is no constabulary, there's no police force, so to speak. There's ramifications, but they're probably not as severe and or interesting as what you might encounter in a city with a police force like Baldur's Gate. But it is something that you're better off always doing from hiding to begin with. So now you get your interaction or introduction to the trade screen here. Now there are two different ways to trade and barter. Okay. Now the differences between the two are, at least in one of the, well, let me kind of step back a little bit. One of the main things that people kept asking for in early access is the being able to shift select, or being able to sell multiple things at the same time. Meaning, if I want to sell the dagger, I can click on it. You can see I'm going to get 17 gold profit by selling it. But if I click on the next dagger, it's just selling that one. There's no shift click. I'm holding shift and I'm clicking, and it's not able to add multiple options. There's no control click, alt click, nothing to select multiple things to sell at the same time, so to speak. So a trade is a gold for item trade. You're basically selling them this dagger, and I'm getting 17 gold in return. Now, there is another way to do this, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it from here. No, I'm not. So I'm going to exit out of this trade screen. We're going to come right back to it.
Sylvanas, guide your path.
And that is, if I go to my inventory here, I can right-click on this dagger, and I can add to wares. Okay, it's going to put a specific icon next to it that indicates that is now designated as a ware, and I can do this with multiple different items, but still only one at a time. There's no shift clicking out here or anything like that. You still have to add them to wares one at a time. But now I've got those 4 items as wares, so to speak. So if I go back and I talk to Aaron again.
Of course, but please, remember, you're not the only one in need.
Now you can see they are marked with that icon, and if I click to barter, now there's this option down here to sell wares. And if I click on this, it's going to move all of the wares that I have marked into this column here, and it's basically going to say, Aaron's going to give me 134 gold for all of that. However, if I want to buy a potion of animal speaking, now he's going to sell me the potion of animal speaking and only give me 89 gold, because this is worth 45. Okay, so that's how you can select or sell multiple items at the same time. However, it doesn't really save you any time because you still have to right click and select. You can't do it from inside the trade screen, but you have to still manually add each one to your wares to be able to click the sell wares button and have them all move in here. Now, just like I did with the dagger, you can move them all by double clicking them. You can move them all in here without having them be aware. The only thing marking them as aware does is allow you to click this button and move them all into this column at the same time. So there is no real simple, easy way to sell multiple things at the same time. That's one of the quality of life things that people were asking about on the forums for a very long time, is the way to select multiple things at the same time and sell them. Because I would basically select this entire thing going all the way down to here, you know, and say sell all of those. There is no real easy way to do that right off the bat. Okay, so you can, what the marking thing, something as aware does, it basically speeds up being able to click this button and get all of your stuff back at one point. That's really all it does. However, in my opinion, it is just as fast to, instead of right-clicking and adding it to the wares, instead just double-clicking on it and getting my gold directly that way instead of doing it. It's 6 of one, half dozen the other at this point. Maybe in the full version they will have added in something to allow you to select and sell multiple things at the same time. However, what you can do to make it slightly easier is when you're looting something, if you're going to be picking it up yourself, instead of double clicking or hitting take all on the chest or whatever, you can right click on it there and add it to wares if you know you're going to be selling it. And then when you come in here, you can go to barter, you can go sell wares, and you can get whatever gold for it, and you can just click the barter button. Okay. And that sells those items, and it gets you the gold that you were expecting out of it. So that kind of gives you an introduction to trading and bartering and the difference between the two. But you can do basically the same thing in here. So you can now, double click on all of these items, add them to this list, and you can see how much gold you're going to get from him. He's got 293 gold left, so now you can say, well, I want to buy a potion of animal speaking. So now I can see that he's going to give me 233 worth of gold, but he's going to have 338 gold left of just things to sell. So this is kind of a more comprehensive screen of knowing how much gold he has left and how much more you're going to be able to sell. But at the end of the day, it's really 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's personal preference at this point, just because there's no easy way to shift click or do multiple clicks on something while you're going through it. So I do want that potion of animal speaking, so I am going to barter that and take that. The other icons are here. This basically allows you to filter what's in this list over here by what type of item it is. Okay, so if you only want to sell weapons that you have, or armor, or things like that you have left, then you can just isolate those in this view screen over here. Okay, so that's what these icons allow you to do, is just show certain items at the same time. And this would be very useful from a drag perspective. If I could drag here and draw a box around all of these to select them, this would be very useful. But again, right now it just helps you search a little bit easier through your inventory, and that's about it. So but going through my inventory here, I am going to look at his inventory first. So magical items here, I have the Amulet of Elemental Torment, and this has the Nature's Vengeance effect on it. So this amulet can be very useful in certain situations. So if, for instance, well, to read it first, it says, when the wearer stands in a certain surface, such as fire, and casts a spell that deals damage, the target also suffers the surface's effects. So in other words, if I'm standing in a fire surface, and Gale is standing in that fire surface and he casts Magic Missile, then all of his magic missiles are going to do the force damage, and they're also going to suffer fire damage along with it. If I'm standing in a pool of acid or something like that, then they're going to get the acid effect, which is going to lower their armor class. That sort of stuff. So it can be very useful. However, to be standing in a surface, you yourself are going to be taking the effect of that surface. So you're going to be taking fire damage by standing in it. And then you're going to be able to inflict that fire damage on somebody else. You're also, if you're standing in acid, your armor class is going to be lowered by two points. But then you can also inflict that on somebody else. So there's downsides to utilizing this, but it can be very, very useful. One of the things that you're also going to find throughout the game, not in early access as much, but throughout the full version, is rings of resistance. So if you, for instance, have a ring of fire resistance or something like that, you're only going to take half damage from fire. So you could stand in a fire surface, cast a spell, and get full fire damage inflicted on somebody else. Or if you wanted to take an elixir of fire resistance, it would do the same thing. You only take half damage from fire. You could then go stand in a fire surface and then cast a spell on somebody, and it would inflict a full fire damage on them, depending upon their resistances, of course. So it can be very, very useful for your spellcasters. And it can be very useful for spellcasters utilizing cantrips that deal damage. So, like Wyll's Eldritch Blast, for instance. He could be standing in a fire surface, and every time he casts Eldritch Blast, it's also going to do fire damage. So, can be useful if you would like to go down that route. He also has Rain Dancer. Rain Dancer is very, very useful for a very low gold amount, especially if you don't have a spellcaster in your ranks that has the Create Water spell. Now, right now, Gale does. That was a selection that he made, but Gale's not going to be in our party for much longer. I'm going to swap him out for Wyll, and rather than waste one of Wyll's spell slots on Create Water, or wasting one of somebody else's spell slots on Create Water, this is only 180 gold and allows you to cast Create Water once per short rest. So I always recommend taking Rain Dancer and at least keeping it in your inventory if you're not going to use it for anything else. So I'm definitely going to take it. And that means that 180 gold now goes back to him, and I can sell more things to him at this point. Okay, so I can sell off these high weight, high gold items and get rid of them. And you can see he's going to slowly run out of gold. And he's going to get to a point where I can no longer sell him anything. Okay, so he's only got 9 gold left. Right? So, at this point, now if I want to sell more things to him, I'm going to have to buy something from him first. Okay? If that makes sense. I need to buy something that gets him some gold so then I can sell more of my items. Is basically the point that you get to. So now you start looking at other things like scrolls, arrows that have different effects, healing potions, which are always very, very useful. I don't normally buy camp supplies from anybody because they're so easy to find camp supplies throughout the game. So I normally don't try and buy camp supplies from anybody. We also do have a leather armor +1, which is light armor. I'm able to use medium armor on my Bard. However, Astarion is limited to light armor. The padded armor he's wearing has an 11 armor class. This is a 12, so that's a straight upgrade. Armor is very expensive in this game, however. So you need to save up a little bit to be able to buy them. And in this case, I'm not going to be purchasing the leather armor +1. Even though it's an upgrade or I could afford it, I would prefer to focus on my characters that have medium armor proficiency and how they're able to get a higher armor class with medium armors as opposed to focusing on the light armors right now. So looking around this trade screen, there's not much else that I want to purchase, but I still have more items that I need to sell. And Lae'zel's still carrying a bunch of weapons and this other sort of stuff. Now you get to the point where you get to like Watcher's Guide here and things like that. The question is, do you want to sell off these items? The thinking in early access, anyway, is that right now we have unlimited slots in our camps in our traveler's chest. You can stack as much stuff as you want in that chest. It's rather hard to sort through it, and that when you're looking at it, but you can store as much as you want. So weapons and armor that may be situationally useful for certain characters, you don't have to sell them. You can just throw them in your camp chest, and maybe you will find an encounter later on where that particular weapon or that particular armor is very, very useful. And having it where you can just reload a save, go back to your camp, pull that item out of your camp chest and use it may be beneficial to you. If you're not going to use it, you don't need it, you don't want it, you can certainly sell all these things. There's no reason that you have to keep any of those items just because they're magical. There are literally going to be thousands of magical items in the full version of the game. So well, at least hundreds, probably over 1,000 of different different magical items in the game. So don't feel that if you're selling something, you're never going to be able to deal with it. The other option is that if you want to save your magical items, you can sell them to a character where you're always going to be able to buy them back. So right now, if I exit out of this, you can see this is what Aaron's inventory looks like here.
Sylvanas be with you. Need anything else? Of course, but please, remember.
Now you can see his inventory has changed because it's showing all of the things that I have sold to him. And I can buy them back. So if you're interested in possibly selling something, for instance, the Watcher's Guide, but you might want to buy it back in the future, you can sell it to an NPC that is always going to be there. And then you're going to have the option to buy that back at some point later on if you want to travel back to that NPC and pick it up. The best way to do this is something I'm going to illustrate maybe a little bit later, and that's the fact that you can trade with almost any NPC. Even if they're not necessarily a trader, like Aaron is, where they have this screen that pops up through a dialogue option, there is another way to trade with characters. Okay, and I'm going to illustrate that here in a little bit, but there's another way that you can sell these to somebody that you always have very easy access to. That person does not have a lot of gold, so you have to kind of manage what you sell to them at any given point. But there is somebody who's very easy to access that you can always get this stuff back from, even if you want to have access to that gold temporarily and then maybe buy it back. Now, Aaron's gold is going to reset after you take a long rest. It does not reset on a short rest. You have to go to your camp and take a long rest, and then his gold will reset. And certain things in his inventory might reset as well, but the items that you sold, at least in early access, the items that you sold stay in his inventory, and you can buy them back. Okay, so for now, that's all we're going to do with Aaron.
Sylvanas be with you.
So, one other thing that I want to illustrate about trading.
Need anything else? Of course, but please.
Is the mechanic of selling an item itself. So, the first thing I'm going to do is you can notice that you can select any of your characters. Whichever character is selected is the character that's going to be selling that item. Okay, so let's just, for instance, look at Lae'zel. Okay, so Lae'zel here, if she's selling this Morning Star, you can look down there at the bottom. That is worth 29 gold profit. Okay? So Lae'zel selling it to Aaron is going to get 29 gold. Now,
be with you.
If I go into my inventory and I look at Lae'zel, and here's that Morning Star. Okay? So there's actually the same Morning Star on Lae'zel. She has two of them. So now if I look at the character sheets, my charisma on Jorvalen is 17. That's getting me a +3 to my ability checks. Lae'zel's is an 8. She's getting a -1 to her ability checks for charisma. Now if I go into Aaron again, and I look at his wares.
But please, remember, you're not the only one in need.
If I look again at Lae'zel, just to remind you, that Morning Star, she's going to be able to sell it to Aaron for 29 gold profit. If I look at my Bard and I click on the Morning Star, she's going to get 42 gold profit. The difference there is because the price that you are going to get when you sell an item or you buy an item is entirely based upon your charisma. Okay, so the higher charisma you have, the more gold you're going to be able to get for selling that item, and the lower price any particular item's going to be. So for instance, these potions of healing, if I click on them, it's 72 gold for Jorvalen to buy them. However, if Lae'zel goes to buy those, they're 104 gold. Okay? That's simply because charisma is a measure of how likable you are. In this case, my bard is very likable, so she's able to talk to Aaron in a way that gets better prices for it. There are items that affect this, there are spells that affect this, all that sort of stuff. So normally if you want to get the best prices when you sell something, even though Lae'zel is carrying all of these weapons, she'd be able to get more gold out of it if you transferred all of these items over to my bard before I sold them. Now, again, this is where we all wish that we had we could select multiple things, because the only way to get all of these here are either to click and drag them one at a time, or to right click and do this for every single one of them. So it's a pain to be able to do this. However, if you are interested in maximizing the amount of gold that you are going to get or selling items, then the best way to do that is to send your items to the character who has the highest charisma before you sell them. Okay? So just something to keep in mind as you're going through the game, that if you can sell things using one of your high charisma characters, you're going to get more gold for it. Now, she obviously gets to a point where she's encumbered and her carry weight doesn't allow her to do it anymore. So then you have to go into your screen here. And this is something else that the community was asking for from a quality of life perspective. In that here you can right click and send these to Jorvalen here. So you can do it without leaving this barter screen. Okay. But it again does take a while to transfer those items back to somebody who's the best suited to sell them. Right? Well, we can't sell or buy anything more from Aaron anyway right now, so that's going to end our conversation here with him. So now we have a couple of different locations that we can go. We can head down around this way, or we can head this way. We're going to head over here and have an interaction here first.
Hells, we can't just leave. They're kin.
I'll not gamble our lives, our futures, on people who are as good as dead. We must leave for Baldur's Gate at once.
Can we all just take a moment, please?
What's the point in blazing spells if we don't bloody use them? We should stay. These people aren't fighters. We can help.
Or yell louder. That's fine too.
Okay, so we have an option here. We can just do nothing. We can tell them to get out while we can and leave their friends behind, or we can try and persuade them to stay. Again, a DC of 10. We have a total bonus of 7. We're rolling really well today, everybody. I'm waiting for the RNG to kick in.
Thank you. It's the right thing to do, and you know it.
She's right, Roland. We're better than this.
Zergan. Fine, I'll stay too. Lest you both end up with your throats slit by Goblin Blade.
Thank you, Roland.
Okay, so just a minor encounter there to kind of help this group out here. So there was a question earlier about, can the bard speak with animals? The answer to that is no. Not without a spell or a potion to be able to do it, like was answered. And that's why I bought a potion of animal speaking, which is somewhere in my inventory here. There are a lot of animal interactions in the grove here, and having the ability to speak with animals can be very useful in opening up lore and learning more about what's happening here, but also can possibly lead to you being able to find secret things or secret areas. Okay? So, the Potion of Animal Speaking lasts until I take a long rest. So, since I'm going to be taking... I probably will not be taking a long rest in any of these areas until I get to the end of them. I'm going to take this potion now just so I have the ability to speak with animals. And this isn't the first. We did encounter an animal back near the front that we can deal with again later. But I'm going to go talk to the Hungry Ox over here. Actually, let's talk to Toron first.
This is no fortress and we're no warriors. This place is a bloody death trap, not a sanctuary. You should clear off while you can.
Okay, so I did pass my perception check anyway, but I'm going to go talk to the Hungry Ox here.
Be gone. I am hungry.
Okay, so nothing there. I'm going to talk to the Bored Ox.
Another one. What are you under there then? Ant? Or rocks? You have the smell, but I do not think so. You are not like the keepers here. They become birds, to hunt on the wing. Bears to tear flesh with teeth. But for me, only oxen, only same old hay. And I cannot even eat it, because the horned ones hide their shiny bits inside. Hiding things. Thinking they're clever. Not clever. Sometimes I eat the shiny bits, and they have to go looking for them on the other end.
Okay,
If we left, we could
so
make a run for it.
if you approach this in a way that you didn't get close to the haystack, that interaction there, by being able to speak with the animals, will let you know that they're hiding shiny bits in the hay. So that would let you know that I need to walk up to the haystack, and then you have to pass the perception check to be able to find it. So now I can search the haystack. I got XP for finding that, and there's a pouch here. So I'm just going to take the pouch. And that's just an example of what having speak with animals can benefit you from. It can let you know that there are other things to go look at, secret places to go see, or it may not have anything to do with that, and they just may be an interesting encounter, or it might help you learn more about what's happening around you. But having the ability to speak with animals is fairly important, at least in early access, and I would expect through the full version. So that's why having the Druid, being able to go into wild shape, and in wild shape you gain the ability to speak with animals, so you don't have to use a potion to do it, was so beneficial, because you're able to talk to all the animals you want when you're in wild shape, and learn all of these things. So if I go to my inventory, you can see we picked up the pouch here. If you double click on the pouch, it opens up the inventory of the pouch. You can see that I have some gold here, and I have another agate, which I can take. And now I have this pouch in my inventory. And this has been mentioned a couple of times in my comments. You can now utilize this pouch as a second inventory. So if, for instance, you wanted to keep all of your keys, okay, inside of that pouch, let me see if I can... Actually, keys, I don't know because they're orange. No, they work. So you could keep all of your keys in here and have them all sorted like that. So now they're all inside of this pouch here. Okay. Now, to use them, if you haven't used them already and you need to use them, then they'll have to be in your main inventory to be automatically used. Actually, they won't, because these are orange. All keys are orange, so it's going to automatically move it to your main inventory to use it. But this allows you to store and separate things inside your inventory. This was something that was asked for in the forums. They've changed this in the full version, meaning you're going to have a keyring, which is basically like this pouch. It's a separate storage item that all your keys get stored on. You're going to have an alchemy pouch, which is a pouch where all of your ingredients for alchemy get stored and sorted. You have spell tomes, which are locations where books where all of your scrolls can get stored as well. So they've listened to us and they've dealt with that in the full version to organize this inventory a bit more, because it's a little bit harsh going through this. Now you can sort your inventory here by type, and now it's going to have your potions and then your weapons and armor and that sort of stuff, but things like Alchemist Fire are a little bit different. They're marked as miscellaneous, so that's why they're stored down here at the bottom with all these sort of things. So the sort by options are a little bit strange in how they work. So there's nothing really very useful in early access, but they are trying to fix that a little bit in the full version of the game. So we'll kind of see how that's going to work. But for now, I'm not going to use the pouches or the backpacks or things like that I could pick up. I certainly could, though, to organize my stuff better. I don't need it. I've been dealing with it throughout the entirety of early access, so I don't really have to worry about it. So we're going to go over here and we're going to have a very important interaction. But first, I'm going to look at Gale. So he's not wearing anything in particular. He does have some scrolls, which I am going to remove from him. And I'm just doing some thinking here about how I want to manage this. Okay, mage armor. The rest of these aren't really important, but I guess I will transfer them over here for now.
If we left, we could at least make a run for it.
And I'm going to leave those healing potions on him for now. I'm going to rectify that here in a little bit. Because again, I'm not banishing Gale permanently from the party. He will be back in and out of the party, but for now,
I'm listening.
I'm going to remove him from my party. I'm going to have him remain in my camp.
I question the wisdom of that decision, but so be it.
And I don't want him to take any items with him that I could use on somebody else.
I'll be in the camp then, idling away the hours.
And that's correct, except like I had said, for the orange items it will, because the orange items have an effect. Trying to remember what the game actually words it, but it's something like magic pockets or something that if you need to use that item, it's going to transfer it from any character's inventory to your inventory to utilize it. So storing keys is a popular use for those things. But yes, anything else that you might need to use, like a potion or something like that, if you think you're going to need to use it, you have to remove it from that pouch or that backpack before you get into the encounter, because it's not going to recognize that they're there. The full version of the game is going to be doing that a little bit differently, though. So I'm anxious to get that full version and see exactly how all of that stuff works. Okay? So we're going to go up here and we're going to approach this area and we're going to get a cutscene to deal with.
Swing and swing. Children! Look who's here. And again. Go on. Give me your best shot.
Not bad. Again. Hey, keep focus. See how I used your own force against you?
I can't do it.
Of course you can. It just takes time. I didn't become the Blade of Frontiers overnight.
Okay, so I do have a Bard interaction here.
The man's smile bends downward, and his thoughts become yours. An unknown face commands your mind. Blue skin, gnarled horns.
Chuck, he is infected.
I'll be damned to the hells. You were on the ship.
A strange sensation courses through you, and Wyll's mind unfolds, secrets half revealed.
Okay, so again, this is the tutorial that walks you through the Illithid Persuasion. So again, down here, we've talked about this previously. We have an option to utilize the tadpole to try and peer further into his mind. Now, this can have negative repercussions depending upon what you're trying to do with it, so you might get disapprovals. However, it can also just be a way of gathering more information. So I think in this case, I normally don't use it for this on this playthrough. On my last playthrough, I used the tadpole every opportunity I got to see more of the effects of it. But in this case, I think I'm going to try it and just see where it goes. Okay, so we've had this discussion before in one of my comments. This is a DC of 0. Now, what I had thought this meant was that you could never fail this, no matter what, because it is a DC of less than 1. Now, in tabletop, if you gave something a DC of 0, you could still fail this. For instance, if I rolled a 1 in tabletop, there is no automatic success or automatic fail in tabletop. In this game, I think they've hard-coded a 1 to always fail and a 20 to always succeed. In tabletop, there's a very famous page of the Dungeon Master's Guide which talks about 1s and 20s. But they're never supposed to be automatic. It just means if you roll a 1 and that 1 fails, then you can have extra negative effects that go along with it. If you roll a 20, there's still a chance that that 20 might not succeed in tabletop if you're dealing with exceptionally powerful enemies. But if you do roll a 20 and it succeeds, then the DM is able to give you things like maybe critical damage or extra effects like knocking them over or things like that. So in this case, for instance, if it's a DC of 0 and I had a -1 to wisdom, this is a wisdom check, and I rolled a 1, then my wisdom would be subtracting 1 from it, and I would end up with a 0, and I would still pass it. Okay? However, I think if you roll a 1 in here, even though this DC is 0, I think you're still going to fail it. I've seen screenshots online of people failing this check with a 1. That should not happen. I'll tell you right now, it should not happen, either by tabletop rules or in reality how skill checks like this should work. I'm hoping in the full version, if that's the case, that it gets corrected. I have personally not rolled a 1 on any of these Illithid checks, but I have seen screenshots of people rolling a 1 and it auto fails this even when it's a 0. But what should happen is because it's a 0, we should be able to pass this almost no matter what. There's only one situation in early access where you could possibly fail this, and that's if you had an 8 or 9 to wisdom and you're getting a -1, and then you're wearing an item that has a -1 to wisdom on it, so you have a total of -2. Then if you roll a 1 and you're subtracting 2 from it, then your number's -1, that's less than 0, so then you would fail it. It's normally really hard to be able to fail these, but I'm hoping that they get that corrected if that's still actually the case. A 1 should not automatically fail this. The reason you set a DC of 0 is so that it always passes no matter what. But it's just one of those things. We'll kind of see.
Something stirs deep within you, hungry and alert. It's taking something you'll never get back. The creature appears again. Blue skin, arched horns, and wings stretching wide behind it. Your minds part again, leaving your skull throbbing.
Ouch. Careful you don't push the brain bugs too far. They'll leave you hurting. If I had to guess, you took a bumpy ride on a mind flayer machine, same as me. And I've been having the strangest dreams. I haven't turned into a mind flayer just yet, but sooner or later, my luck will run out. Been thinking I need a healer. And I reckon you've been thinking the same. I've been waiting for this Druid Halcyon to return. They say he's pretty powerful. He could probably help us. Problem is, the goblins have nabbed him. We better go find him before we start growing talons and tentacles. Excellent idea, but I have a condition. Look at these kids. They've no chance on the road, not while goblins infest it. I've got the grandest of plans. You and me, we kill the goblin horde's leaders. That should scatter the buggers. Frontier justice, I call that. What say you? Splendid. It's time for some old-fashioned hero work.
Okay, so wanted to let those dialogue options play out. Yeah, I can see from the comments that, like I say, I think it still is hard-coded that a 1 automatically fails and a 20 automatically succeeds. Like I say, that is not in 5th edition rules, technically. But it is a very popular way to play tabletop. A lot of DMs do it that way. However, with a 0 DC, you're basically telling your party, you shouldn't ever fail this. You're using some special ability that you shouldn't fail it. And in early access, it would be very, very hard to get a -1 roll to actually be able to fail it. Like I say, there's only 2 items in the game, I think, that in combination with your ability scores could give you a -1 outcome to a roll. So I'm really hoping that that has changed and that it doesn't go that way in the full version, and it's been commented on in the forums, so we'll just have to wait and see kind of how it goes. But yes, a 0, if they're trying to tell you it should never fail by giving you a 0 DC, then why make a 1 automatically fail it? It doesn't make any sense from D&D rules or from a usage perspective. But so what we did was we ended up there recruiting Wyll into our party. And Wyll is going to be a constant fixture in our party. The party that you are looking at right now is the makeup that we're going to have through a lot of early access. We are, like I said, going to change out characters here and there for certain specific things that we're going to be doing that have to do with their origins, but it's this is the main makeup of what we're going to do. So it's one of those things where, like I say, this is the main makeup that we're choosing to use for this, and we're doing it for a very specific reason. And we'll kind of explain that as we go through Wyll here. But first, we're going to level up Wyll. Okay, so from level 1 to level 2, the main thing that we get here is he gains a Warlock spell slot, but he gets an Eldritch Invocation. Now, one thing to know about Warlocks, well, I guess two things about Warlocks. Those conversations that we had previously, you heard mentioned of blue skin and horns, somebody standing behind Wyll. Warlocks get their powers from their patron. Their patron here is basically in this game illustrated by their subclass here. Wyll's subclass is chosen for you, and they get their power from being allied one way or another, either voluntarily or involuntarily, with a supernatural deity of some sort. And that's kind of an oversimplification, because it doesn't have to really be like a god or something like that. Patrons can be a lot of different things in tabletop. But they gain their abilities by being able to channel a portion of the powers that their patron have. And the main feature of a warlock is something called the Eldritch Blast. That is basically being able to channel pure power from their patron in the form of a damaging blast that they are able to cast at the start once per turn. And that Eldritch Blast, think of it like a cantrip. You can cast it once per turn, over and over and over again without a spell slot. When you get to level 2 here, you're able to modify that Eldritch Blast to do different things. And you can pick 2 invocations out of this list to modify your Eldritch Blast to do different things. Okay? So the first thing on this list is Agonizing Blast. When you cast Eldritch Blast, you add your Charisma modifier to the damage it deals. Wyll's Charisma modifier is +3, so basically if you choose Agonizing Blast, you're going to get a +3 damage whenever he casts Eldritch Blast. This is one of those things to start off with that, in my opinion, and people play this differently, but in my opinion, it's a no-brainer to pick. It's a guaranteed +3 damage on top of their Eldritch Blast, and it's a +3 that is not modifiable by anything else. So it's just a guaranteed 3 flat damage on top of whatever your Eldritch Blast is going to do. So this is something that I think is, at least in early access, is one of the first things that you should focus on. Armor of Shadows allows you to cast Mage Armor on yourself at will without expending a spell slot. Now, it's very important to realize that Mage Armor increases your armor class when you are not wearing armor. Okay, so if you're wearing light armor or something like that, then you are not going to gain a benefit from Mage Armor. Okay, so if you're using your Warlock in different ways, where you're going to try and get them proficiencies with certain armor types or something like that to be able to do more of a fighting Warlock type of thing, remember that Armor of Shadows isn't going to increase your armor class at all if you're wearing some sort of armor. Beast Speech is speak with animals at will. So this would eliminate the need for anyone in your party to have speak with animals, either through a potion or a scroll or something like that, because he's able to cast it at will. So, Beguiling Influence is basically giving you proficiency in deception and persuasion. I already have proficiency in both of those. And I have, well, I think I actually have it in intimidation and persuasion. I can't remember which of the two I chose. And then I have expertise in persuasion through my Bards. So I don't need beguiling influence here, but it is certainly useful from the perspective of Wyll, because with his high charisma, he's going to be really good at conversations. Adding in beguiling influence allows him to gain more proficiency points and help his rolls out during more conversations. Devil's Sight gives him dark vision up to 24 meters. So that is more than regular dark vision is. But this allows him, he is a human, so he does not get to see in the dark. This would allow him to see in the dark whenever he wants. Fiendish Vigor gives you false life, which is basically whenever you want, you can give yourself 5 temporary hit points. Those temporary hit points get used first before your other hit points do. So it's basically a defensive spell. Mask of Many Faces allows you to disguise self at will. In early access, this is situationally useful in conversations. You can disguise yourself as various things to improve your conversation chances with certain types of NPCs or creatures that you meet throughout the game, but again, only situationally useful. Repelling Blast is very interesting in that whenever you hit your creature with an Eldritch Blast, you push that creature back away from you 4.5 meters. Now, the Repelling Blast is interesting because of the verticality in this game. Being able to push enemies off of high ground into bottomless pits so that they just die, or pushing them into lava, or pushing them off of a high cliff onto a lower ground so they take fall damage, is very, very useful in this game. So Repelling Blast is definitely the second one I'm going to take here. And then Thief of Five Fates allows you to cast Bane using one of your spell slots. So Warlocks have very limited spell slots to use, but this allows you to cast Bane using one of those spell slots. I'm going to have other ways to cast Bane or inflict Bane on other creatures, so I'm not going to pick that. We'll talk about their spell slots and how a Warlock operates with those here in a little bit. So now we get to pick our spells here. So it wants us to use Hex. Now, this is a very, very useful Warlock spell. You can think of it as similar to Hunter's Mark for the Rangers, in that, except it's not directly dealing damage. It does do damage conditionally, and it can possibly inflict damage, but what it really does is casts a spell on them so that they have disadvantage on ability checks with an ability of my choosing. So I can choose to hex, for instance, somebody's constitution. And now if I cast another spell on them, or they get hit with an effect that has a constitution saving throw, now they have disadvantage on that saving throw. So it makes it easier for me to land spells or land effects on that target farther on. It's concentration based, so if you cast another concentration spell, it's going to get rid of it. However, the other thing with Hex is that you can reapply it if the target dies before the spell ends. So in that case, it's very much like Hunter's Mark in that if the character or the enemy dies, it goes over in the side of your bar, your action bar at the bottom, and you can click on it and reapply it as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. So you can keep moving that Hex around to different characters after they die. I think Hex is very, very useful, so I'm going to choose it as my first spell, and you'll see me use it and how it works. But Hellish Rebuke is a great spell. So it's delayed in that when you take damage, you can use your reaction to surround your attacker in flames, which do 2d10 damage. They have a dex save to only take half damage, but it's one of those things where if you're going to use your warlock as a kind of melee-based warlock, melee-based spellcaster, Hellish Rebuke is great. You can cast it on yourself. Next time you take damage, you can use your reaction to do some serious damage on the next turn to the person who's attacking you. So it can be very, very useful. It's a great spell. I'm going to take Hex as my first one. So for my replacement spells, Wyll comes with Armor of Agathis and Arms of Hadar. So Armor of Agathis it gives you 5 temporary hit points, and it deals 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack, and it lasts until long rest. So this is something that you can cast right when you wake up from your long rest, and then it stays with you throughout the entire time. And the temporary hit points will not. Those, if you get hit, those will get used up, but the 5 cold damage effect can stay with you. So it can be very useful from a defensive perspective. Arms of Hadar is great. You saw him cast it previously. It's got a 3-meter radius, and you have to be within 3 meters of something to cast it. That's the downside to it, in that it's not concentration. You can cast it whenever you want. However, you have to be within 3 meters of an enemy for it to work. I think it still does decent damage, and it's situationally very good. So I think I'm going to leave both of these here. I don't think there's... I love the command spell. I'm just not going to experiment with it now. And Witch Bolt is a concentration spell. If I'm using Hex, then I'm not going to be able to use Witch Bolt. But Witch Bolt is, very useful, just not something I'm going to focus on this time. So I think I'm going to leave these two in my list here as we go. Okay, so now we can level Wyll up to level 3. And here we get improved Warlock spells, which is basically most of my spells become stronger. They have a higher DC to be able to resist them. And I get my first Pact boon. Now, my patron is chosen to bestow a gift upon me for my service. In this case, I can only choose Pact of the Chain. In the full version, there are going to be more Pact boons that you can select from. But for now, Pact of the Chain is the only thing that I can select. And what it allows me to do is gain the service of a familiar. I can cast Find Familiar as an action whenever I want and either summon an imp or a quasit. An imp is able to fly, it can turn invisible, and it can sting enemies and poison them. The quasit has more hit points. It can also turn invisible and scare enemies. And we've learned about Frighten previously, that if the creature's frightened, it can't move, and it's got disadvantage on all of its ability checks and attack rolls. So both of these familiars are really, really good to have. Okay? So now my spells... I have access to level 2 spells now. And there are some really good level 2 spells here. So Misty Step is always awesome. But Warlocks have to learn their spells through leveling up here. They don't get access to more spells like through reading them from scrolls or anything like that. So I need to be careful about my selection here for what I want the level 2 spell to be. So I would love Misty Step, but I have something else later on in the game which is going to allow me to utilize Misty Step. So Shatter is a great spell. From distance and then in a 3-meter range, it does 3d8 thunder damage. Very few things in the game are resistant to thunder damage. And if you look at it, affected creatures made of inorganic materials such as stone or metal have disadvantage on their saving throw to this. Okay, so casting this on automatons or things like that are not organic, they're very likely to take full damage from this, instead of passing a Constitution save and taking only half damage. So Shatter's a great spell. Scorching Ray is also a great spell. I talked about this previously with Gale. It's kind of like Magic Missile in that you can cast multiple Scorching Rays. Each ray does 2d6 fire damage. However, there's a to-hit component on this. So it's great for causing damage at range to multiple targets. However, there is a chance it's going to miss and it won't land. So it's not like Magic Missile, which always hits. So I've seen a couple of comments about chat on the screen being broken. Are you guys able to see the chat? It's showing up in my preview. Let me type something and see if it shows up. It might be it's stuck on one comment. Okay, let me see if I can reset it here. Okay, yeah, the chat in YouTube works. The one on the screen doesn't seem to be working. So I see what you mean. The one on the screen seems to be frozen. So not entirely sure why it's stuck up there. I tried to reset it, but it's still keeping the same. Yeah, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to reset it here. Let me actually try and do this. And now let me try and reset it again real quick. Okay, well, it might be broken. It might not be reading the YouTube chat correctly. I can turn it off. I was just hoping to try and get it to work again. But it doesn't look like it's going to be responding. Yeah, looks like it just isn't bringing through the chat. So it's probably a YouTube issue. It's just not bringing it through very well. There was an issue I noticed there, so I'm just going to disable the on-screen chat for the rest of the live stream. Sorry, I'll take a look at it off stream and see if I can get it fixed. So there is an item that also gives us Scorching Ray to utilize. So I think in this one I'm going to use Shatter. I like the AoE versions of this, but there are some great spells in here. I'm just trying to stay away from concentration spells because I want to utilize Hex to be able to lower, for instance, here I would lower the constitution of my target, so that way when I cast Shatter, they have less of a chance of passing their constitution save. Get it to work. So that's kind of the goal behind using Hex. So I'm going to take Shatter as my second spell here. And again, from a replacement perspective, now I can start thinking, do I want to swap one of these two out for something else? And I think I'm actually going to end up swapping out their Armor of Agathis for Scorching Ray. Okay, and that's going to finish my level up for Wyll. Okay, now the reason that I chose Wyll to be in my party, and this is how your party, your characters synergize, and that's because warlocks gain their spell slots back once per short rest. Now I have 2 short rests available to me right now, so every time I do a short rest, he's going to get all of his expended spell slots back. That's different than most spellcasters who need a long rest to get their warlock spells back. Okay? Warlocks can only cast 2 spells per short rest. That's it. That's also different than most others where they have level 1 spells, level 2 spells, and that sort of stuff. That's not how warlocks work. Warlocks cast everything here at level 2, so everything is upcasted, and I have fewer spells available to cast, but I can get them back more frequently. I can get those back using short rests when I'm out of combat.
Can't give up now.
However, my warlock also has a Song of Rest action, meaning that I can use the Song of Rest and that acts as a short rest. So I can use this action to get my warlock spells back whenever I want, as long as I have the action available to me. So now I'm no longer limited to just 2 short rests available here to get my warlock spells back. I can get my warlock spells back whenever I want by using the Song of Rest class action. And that's why I'm choosing Wyll instead of Gale here, is because I have, even though I have less amount of spells I'm able to cast, and I have a lower selection of spells available to me, I have the ability to get those spells back basically whenever I want. So if I have an issue and I'm out of spells, I can just do that Song of Rest and get those back for Wyll, and maybe get myself through another area or another encounter that I might not be able to do without having to take a long rest, because there are certain areas in the game where you can't take a long rest. The game just won't let you. Very similar to your dungeon master not letting you take a long rest while you're right in the middle of a dungeon or something like that. That would make things way too easy, right? You need to be able to manage your resources to get yourself all the way through those areas, and this is one of those things that's going to allow me to do that. Okay, so now here inside this area we have some other encounters that we can have, or some other conversations that we can have. So we'll just go around and have a few.
At the gates. You fight well. A few words for the kids. Spare a story or two.
And I'm trying to remember to give everybody time to read these.
Thanks. I prefer when they smile.
Swing and swing.
And remember, except there are the downsides there, because I only have I have very few amount of spells that I can select from compared to, say, the wizard class, and I'm not able to learn my spells through scrolls like the wizard class can. So there are downsides. There are, like I say, upsides and downsides to both, but this is a specific class synergy that can be utilized. If you don't have a bard in your party, there isn't another way to gain more long or short rests. Okay, so if you're not planning on having a bard in your party, then whether it's overpowered or not, it's kind of irrelevant, because you can't gain more short rests. So there are both pros and cons as you're going through. This is just one of those class synergies that I thought about when I first decided how the party makeup was going to be, when I decided to choose a bard as my main character here. So
Swing and step, parry, strike. Damn it! It's just not landing. Nothing but goblins in the wild out for blood, and the druids in here looking to kick us out. Or worse. We need to be ready for a fight, but I'm useless with a sword.
okay, so here we have some options. We can demonstrate some athletics. That's going to have a +1 from my jack of all trades. I have an insight check because I have proficiency. That's giving me +2. I also have detect thoughts, which is a wisdom-based option here, to read his thoughts to help guide myself through this. In this case, I'm just going to try the insight check using my proficiency. DC of 10, I've got a +2.
I'll try and brace them better. Like so. Step, brace, parry, swing. Yes! You really know what you're doing. Found this by the road. Bet you'll put it to good use. Oh, yes. I'll bite my tongue when the time comes. Hopefully, it's just the goblins we have to worry about. The druids are treating us like vermin. But I'll keep at it. Thank you. Parry, swing, lunge.
Okay, so this is one of the reasons that you can change party members in and out. If Lae'zel was not in your party, that inspiration would not go to your party because she's not there to experience that encounter. So that's why, in addition to changing your origin characters out to help advance their origin stories, you may swap them in and out to get more inspirations throughout the game. So a couple of questions that pop up. So when are you going to see the full version? The full version comes out this week. Next Sunday, this live stream will be replaced with a full version, starting a new character, and hopefully I'm going to test it when the game releases, how hard it is, and if it's possible for me to keep both the early access and the full version available to me through Steam or not. If I can keep both of them on my computer without having to re-download each one every day, then I will have this live stream continuing on Saturday afternoon, and then the full version on Sunday, all the way up until this live stream and early access completes. We'll see if that's possible or not. That's the plan, but I'll see if it's possible through Steam to do or not, and hopefully we can continue this live stream. If it's not, or I have to re-download 80 gigabytes worth of files every time I switch between the two on Steam, then it's not going to be worthwhile, and I'm going to have to forgo this live stream, or the early access Bard playthrough in favor of a full version, because people aren't going to want to see early access content when the full version's out. But I did get a lot of comments about continuing the Bard playthrough because they're interested in how the Bard plays, so that's why I want to keep it going if I can, so you get a bonus live stream. So yes, the question was answered about the options depending upon your class. Your class is going to get you bonus options that are available, normally down at the bottom of your interactions sometimes, that may change how the interaction works, but it's not something that normally is a make or break thing. It's just going to help enhance an interaction that you might have depending upon your class and the interactions with others. So druids interacting with the druids down here have different dialogue options and that sort of stuff. So now we're going to continue on. We're not going to continue down this way yet. This is the final way that we're going to go, but we are going to continue on down here, and we knew about Zorru from Lae'zel. So we're going to go down here, and we're going to have a new interaction.
By Mordai's eyes, another one. My friend's blood not enough. Come to rip me open too.
In Kresh Kalir, a formal greeting begins with a bow.
Is this monster with you?
Lower.
You saw another Gith. Where?
On the road to Baldur's Gate, near the mountain pass. Saw us, for we saw it. Jammed its blade through Yul's belly. Straight to the other side.
No twisting. Kin must have been in a hurry. The map. Show me. Up. You can keep your innards.
By the dead gods, are all gifts so brutal?
Brutal? Blood still flows through his own veins. I was positively gentle.
Okay, so an interesting interaction there for Lae'zel, and we can talk to her immediately afterward about it.
The locals prove compliant. A useful trait. Tch. A shell so thin requires little to crack it. The Tiefling was clear. If there are Githyanki west of here, that must be our objective. Purification cannot wait.
Okay, so we do have an insight check here that we can try. Wow, we have rolled nothing but good.
Lae'zel's eyes drift downward. Something is off.
Okay, so again, I do have another Illithid option here. However, I think I've already used my Illithid power today. So I don't think I'm going to be allowed to use it again. But that opened up this dialogue option here.
An infinitude. We are not friends. I will speak when it suits me, and not before. The Kresh holds the Zaythisk. It will cleanse us of the parasite. By covenant, I can say no more.
Okay. So yes, a couple of the conversations. Yeah, I know the beta thing. When you swap between betas, so for instance, I'm in patch 9 right now. If I select patch 8 out of the menu on Steam, it has me download the entire patch 8 again to play it. The patch 8 is not saved on my computer. It downloads it from scratch, and then when I'm playing patch 8 and I change to patch 9, it has me re-download patch 9 again to play patch 9. So if I'm able to download the full version and then to play patch 9, I select it and I have to download patch 9 again, that's a lot of internet usage just to play this on Saturday. And then at the end of that live stream, I'd have to spend another 80 gigabytes of download to re-download the full version and get the full version ready for the live stream on Sunday. That's just too much. So I probably would have to sacrifice the live stream, the Bard playthrough at that point, if that's the case. But I'm going to look around in Steam when the full version drops and we'll see what we can do. So just looking around here, this is just a regular book that there's nothing special about it. And we can do some searching through here. We have some camp supplies that we can send directly to our camp. No need to pick those up. Same with these. And she's walking slow because we were given that battle axe. So I'm going to move that over here so she's no longer encumbered. And then there are some other Tieflings, or Tieflings, or whatever Lae'zel likes to call them, to talk to.
Druids, this grove is a death trap. Grab what you can and get out. That's my advice.
Yeah, the developers recommend that you have 150 gigabytes of available space. The actual download itself right now is like 78 or 82 or something like that, according to the people who were at the event and actually got to play it. So there's going to be some additional things that go along with it, depending. Oh, whoops.
Best show some respect, or some more cunning.
So I accidentally clicked on the steel here while I was talking, and you saw what happened. She saw me do it, and I got a -5 reputation in the encampment here. So not enough to get me in serious trouble, but the more you keep getting caught, the worse it's going to get. But yeah, either way, trying to keep downloading that much every time is it's just too much of a pain. So now we're going to walk down here around this corner. There is another spot that we're going to... Actually, we can go do this now since we're not going to utilize this in this playthrough. We can go over here to this shabby door. And go in here and see this cutscene.
Put it down. She can't fight back.
That's the point. Get out of the way!
She didn't kill your brother, Arca. You're better than this.
Shoot before you lose your nerve, Tiefling. If you ever had it to begin with.
Looks like the Absolute sent me a protector. You gonna kill her too? You, move!
Okay, so I do have some options here. So again, Persuasion, it's a +7 on Persuasion checks. It's a DC of 10.
What in every hell is wrong with you? Damn you. Damn it! Why do you care if a goblin lives or dies?
Again, just giving everybody time to read those.
Your soft heart will be the death of us.
Gods, you're exhausting. Fine then.
It's all right, Arca. Let's go.
Okay, so various approvals and disapprovals there based upon your choices. That's one of those things that will come out in the guides in the full version, is which characters are going to be approving and disapproving of interactions so that you can try and maximize your approval. Yes, +7 is a lot. That's why having expertise in a skill is amazing. That's what makes Astarion so great at picking locks, with his +7 skill bonuses because of his dexterity score and then his proficiency and expertise. The same reason I chose Persuasion with my charisma and then my Persuasion, proficiency, and expertise. It's a huge bonus to help get you through those conversations in a way that's going to be beneficial. So we're not going to utilize Saza during this playthrough. We did in our last one, so you can go check that out and see how her interactions work. But we can talk to her.
Ain't sure why you're protecting me. Don't care, neither. It's too late to make friends, warg meat. My tribe's coming. They're gonna burn this pretty place for the glory of the Absolute and hang you by your guts. Goddess. We're burning her name across the face of the world, we are. The Absolute is gold from the sky, she is. The blessing in the storm and the storm itself. My tribe can tell you everything there is to know. Absolute bless one of our own. Priestess Gut. Got a whole lab set up. Cooks up potions that fix our lads, no matter how much of a beating they take. Could probably stick your head back on if someone was to chop it off. Mighty booyog. It's the truth. I swear on your mother's grave. Get me out of here, and I'll tell you where to find her. Deal? Even if you did find my tribe, they'd set the wargs on ya. You need me. Get me out of here, and I'll tell them what a good friend you are. Suit yourself. Looking forward to seeing what your innards look like.
Okay, so again, we're not going to utilize Saza during this playthrough, but it is interesting, the interactions you can have with her. There is something down this way that we're going to explore on our way out of here, but we're not going to do it right now. So now we're going to head back down where we were here, and we have a couple of areas, one here, and another one over here. So first we're going to head over this way, and again, holding alt, a whole bunch of stuff that's all marked steel. We've already talked to Leah, Roland, and Cal here. So we're going to go up and we're going to talk to Ukta.
Saw you fighting those slimy bastards. Fancy a bowl? Best to fill your belly now, while we still can. Look, it ain't much, but it might make all the difference. The only way we'll make it to Baldur's Gate is to run, and run hard. If a gnoll catches your scent, you'll need every bit of strength. Trust me.
Okay. So we did end up with an item there, and we're again overloaded. We picked up gruel, which is camp supply, but it's also camp supplies that do 3d4 healing. Okay, so if you look at our potions of healing, those do 2d4 healing. So this is kind of like an amped up healing potion, so to speak. So something good to carry on you and have, to be able to carry around. Just want to make sure I'm not encumbered while I'm using it. And next is somebody very easy to miss if you're not looking for her, and that's Auntie Ethel over here. You can see she's a trader. One thing I do want to try and illustrate. Let me see if it works with Ukta.
You've had your share. Leave some for the rest.
Okay, so it doesn't work with her.
Those goblins will rue the day they
Okay.
chose to tangle with this grove.
See, there's a trade button down here.
I can feel it.
At any time, even if they're not a trader, you can click on the trade button and open up an inventory here that you can trade with them. Now, she doesn't have any gold, so you're not going to be able to sell anything to her, so to speak. But you can buy things from her. You could buy some camp supplies if you would like. You could also buy this to-do list if you would like.
Depends. How many people
But
are dumb enough to ask?
keep in mind that that trade button is there, because even if they're not listed as a trader, if you can have a conversation with them, you can open up a trade option, which is going to show some things in their inventory and give you an opportunity to be able to possibly buy certain things from them. If I really needed some camp supplies, then I might be able to buy them from her. That sort of stuff. So keep that in mind, that there are more ways to get into the trading options other than just a trade dialogue or something like that. But here, Auntie Ethel is a trader, it says there, so we're going to go have a conversation with her.
If it isn't the talk of the camp. Thank goodness you came along when you... Oh. There isn't a bit of colour in those cheeks, Petal. Are you hurt? Cold? Feverish? Auntie Ethel will sort you out. I've lotions and potions galore. Aha! You take a sup of that and you'll feel right as rain, sweetie. Oh, 'tis just a healing potion, nothing fancy. Here. You just look like you might need a pick-me-up. I'm sorry to go on about it, but are you all right? You're looking awful peaky. seen it all. I once had a fella who'd been caught dabbling with a dryad. The wife was none too pleased and introduced him to a pot of boiling oil. But worry not. I fixed him up, and depending on the lighting, he looks good as new. My point is, whatever ails you, I promise I've seen worse.
She is not to know of our ailment. Only a Gith healer may make us pure.
What is it, Petal? What's wrong?
As you recount your adventure, Auntie Ethel nods along, her eyes wide.
You poor pet! My heart goes out to you, truly. I see no sign of a tentacle yet, but that could change in an instant. You need help. Serious help. I've ne'er a potion or lotion here that could do it, but... yes, I may have something at home. I've collected some interesting bits and bobs over the years. You'll have to stop by my house, just at the edge of the forest. Let me mark it on your map. I'll be heading back soon, so I can meet you there. Now, do you need anything? I have a few odds and ends for sale. Hey, bother.
Yes, and as I've seen in the comments, it's very hard to know that this is your first interaction with Auntie Ethel. So a lot of people just encounter her out on the road where she's talking to the brothers. But this is where the game scripts the first encounter with her. So, couple of things. She gave us a potion of healing. It's listed as a potion of greater healing here. She also has for sale Coralon's Grace and Spell Thief. Now, both somewhat interesting magical items. However, we can also, she has 702 gold to be able to sell items off. So first of all, that's what I'm going to do, is just utilize all of her gold to sell off some of these heavyweight items that we're carrying along with us here. Not necessarily the things that are expensive and low weight, but the heavyweight items, so I can clear up my carry weight here. So I'm just going to sell off as many of these as I can. And I don't need this pouch anymore either. And then nothing there. And then Lae'zel has some items that I can quickly move over. And this is one of the reasons that the people on the forums, including myself, were complaining about this, because the right click and the left click, there's kind of a delay in them sometimes. So sometimes where you left click after you've chosen to send it, it might not select here, it might select the one above it. That's how in a couple of my live streams I ended up equipping a salami as a weapon, was because send to camp right above it was equip. So instead of sending it to camp like I clicked on, it equipped it, and I didn't realize it. So, crazy enough, I actually got a kill using a salami in my last playthrough. So, very, very interesting thing to see. So, trust me. But yeah, that's one of the reasons that this right-click option here is... it's just something that everybody on the forums has complained about. So for now, I can sell off about that much, and she's done. So now the two magical items and the other things here. So first, we have Elixirs of Hill Giant Strength. These are incredibly useful, especially for Lae'zel, but also for characters that can't jump very far, like Astarion. Having Elixirs of Hill Giant Strength is going to up his strength, and that means that he's able to jump farther, and he's able to get himself into areas where there might be a chest he has to go pick, but he can't jump across the gap to get there. One of these potions would allow him to do that. So having a potion of hill giant strength is something very useful, and I'm definitely going to pick one of those up right now. Okay, so now out of that, now that gives her some more gold back, and I can now sell off the remainder of as many of these items as I can. And now I can start selling off things like the necklaces and that sort of stuff. The spiked bulbs I can get rid of. They're very low damage and not nearly as useful as they might have been. However, the caustic bulbs and the void bulbs are incredibly useful, so I'm going to keep those. And the broken loot I don't need anymore, and now I can sell off some of these other items here. And we do have a ruby in our inventory. It's worth 889 gold, so it's going to take some to finding somebody pretty special to be able to sell that off. Okay. So now looking at these two items here, whether I want them or not. The other thing that's very useful here is a potion of invisibility. I'm just not going to be utilizing it now. We're going to be able to find a few of these before we need them. The other thing I do want to do is pick up these potions of healing for Wyll. He's got 2, but this is going to allow everybody to have 3 by picking those up. So Coralon's Grace gives you unhampered resistance as an effect. If you're attacked while not wearing armor, you get a 1d4 bonus to saving throws. That is not to your armor class, so it doesn't help you avoid the attack. However, if you are attacked and you're not wearing armor, then you're going to get a bonus to your saving throws. So it helps you avoid effects that may come from weapons or things like that, or from spell effects. It's going to give you a bonus to help avoid those things. Next is Spell Thief, and that gives you Arcane Vehemence. So once per short rest, you regain a level 1 spell slot when you land a critical hit with the Spell Thief. Now, this can be quite useful for if you have longbow proficiency, which is what this is, then once per short rest, you're going to gain back a spell slot, a level 1 spell slot when you land a critical hit. Now, critical hits, you can help generate critical hits by using the Spell Thief to target people who are otherwise incapacitated, like somebody who is asleep, or somebody who is stunned, or somebody who is paralyzed. Those, when you hit, are going to be critical hits. So if you can combine this with a spell casting ability that renders targets more susceptible to critical hits, then you can use this once per short rest to gain back a level 1 spell slot. It can be very useful. It's not something that I'm going to focus on. My crossbows that I have do more they do the same amount of damage, but the benefits I gain off of this is not something I'm going to be concentrating on as a bard. It doesn't get me back my bardic inspirations. It does get me back that level 1 spell slot, but just once per short rest. So you can utilize it in certain situations, and if you have money to spare, certainly something good to pick up. I'm going to forgo it for now because there's something else that I'm going to focus on with the remainder of my money. But I am going to go through and look and see. So we do have some books, and I don't really care if I sell these off and get less than what I could get for them, because they're relatively small amounts of profit anyway. So I'm just going to sell these off, and that should be the end of it. Yes. And I don't think... Oh, I can send that to camp. Okay. So I'm going to forgo those 2 for now.
Be careful on the road.
But maybe coming back to them.
I'd hate if something happened to you. Take care, Peggy.
Okay, and you see that she has a bunch of potions on her desk, on her table over here, but they are marked as steal, and they are pretty hard to, or they're pretty easy to steal, basically. If you go into hiding back here, Auntie Ethel stays turned away, so you can manage your detection cones here. However, Okta's detection cone goes right up to the very edge of this, so it is kind of hard once you're in hiding to get over here and grab these, but there are ways to do it. The reason I'm saving my money is because of Dammon over here, and he's another trader. He's the third trader that is available inside the outpost here.
If you need to replace any gear, just ask. My selection's pretty slim. I had to leave most of my equipment in Elturel. The best. People came from as far as Neverwinter to buy my swords. Funny how things change when your bloodline becomes a problem. Guess I'll be starting over in Baldur's Gate. I hope people are more open-minded there.
Okay, and this is the reason that I'm saving up, is because Dammon has a certain amount of set items. He also has random items that are available. Dammon is your armor and weapon trader here in this first section of early access. And that is that they have access to Scale Mail +1. Scale Mail +1 is tied for the highest armor class, medium armor that you can get in early access. The other one, or what it is tied with, is the Githyanki half plate, which is what Lae'zel is wearing. You don't get access to this until after you defeat, or more versions of this until after you defeat the Githyanki patrol. You can take this armor off of Lae'zel and put it on yourself if you want. In my mind, it's just not, it's a role-playing thing. I'm going to let them keep their outfits as long as they can, and it makes sense you would have it from a role-playing perspective. But this is where you're going to get things like light crossbow +1. These are crossbows, have higher damage per simple weapon or martial weapon group than your short bow and longbow do. This is 1d8, which is the same as a longbow, but is +1 for both to hit and to damage. And this is a weapon that almost everybody is proficient with. So this is a straight damage upgrade to anybody using a light crossbow. This gives you a +1 to hit and a +1 to damage. You have rapier +1s. I'm using a rapier right now, so this is a straight upgrade in damage over what I'm currently using. 2 daggers +1, which is a straight upgrade for the dagger that is being used in his offhand for Astarion. There's a short sword +1, again, a straight upgrade over this. So this is your first time that you really get to experience +1 weapons and magical items that are going to boost your combat abilities. However, you can see these are expensive. Okay, that rapier +1 is 1,840 gold. The scale mail +1, well, actually, if I go to my best character here, this is 1,350 to be able to wear it, and I've got 1,952. Okay, so this is where you start having to make choices as to what you want to focus on inside here. Now, he's going to have a selection of basic +1 weapons and armor. He's also always going to have the Blooded Great Axe. A magical weapon here that when you have less than 50% of your hit points, or actually not less than, when you have 50% of your hit points or less, they deal an additional 1d4 slashing damage. So it's conditional damage, but it is 1d12 and then a possible 1d4. Yes, Browski, to hit is your attack roll. So on a standard weapon that's +1, that weapon enchantment, that is +1 to both the attack roll and the damage roll. To both. Okay? So, but the Blooded Great Axe is, again, situational. If I go to Lae'zel, and then I hold this up and look and compare it with the Everburn Blade, this is 2d6 slashing and 1d4 fire damage all the time, every attack. This is 1d12 slashing, so it has a lower minimum. It's 2 as opposed to 3. But then the maximum is still the same. And then the slashing damage is conditional for when you have 50% of your hit points or less. So that's where the Everburn Blade is better in every situation than the Blooded Great Axe. However, in certain situations when you have less than 50% or 50% of your hit points or less, the Great Axe can come close to what the Everburn Blade does. Okay? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pick up the Scale Mail +1. And that is because I have proficiency through my College of Valor here to be able to wear medium armor. And this is tied for the best medium armor I can get. So I'm going to buy this, going to immediately equip it, and I can then sell off the jerkin here. I don't need to carry it. Okay, so that's why I was saving my money. I have a little bit less left. I can look at some other things, so maybe the short sword +1 for Astarion is a good deal. Wyll also uses rapiers. He's proficient with them, so that would be a good buy if I could afford it. But for now, I think the only other thing I'm going to do is possibly just upgrade his... Yeah, because I can't afford the light crossbow yet. So I think I am just going to spend a little bit extra and buy the short sword +1 here. And I'm going to send that to Astarion. Astarion's going to equip that. He can then send that back to Jorvalen, and Jorvalen can sell it. Okay. So, remember Dammon? He also has normally, and he has a lot of gold on him because I bought 2 magic items from him. But he also normally has quite a bit of gold to be able to sell stuff back to him. So don't forget about him when you're playing through the early access, or when you're the full version when it comes out. He's a good place to stock up on magical items at the start of the game. Okay, so at this point we have a few more conversations that can happen over here, and then we have another area to explore in the stone door. But we have finished up this down area here. We've explored the traders. We have upgraded our magical weapons to a certain extent. And with that, we have reached the end of today's live stream. It is 5 o'clock here, Central Daylight Time. So, don't want to keep you guys any longer than that. So, again, what we're going to do next week is kind of dependent upon what the full version release is like. The intent right now is that on Saturday, this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Daylight Time, I will have another live stream, a bonus live stream where we will continue the Bard early access playthrough. And then on Sunday, we will have a brand new playthrough, starting with a brand new character in the full version of the game. And that playthrough will then continue as long as it takes until it's done. However, because of what I talked about earlier with how the download works with Steam, I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. We're going to have to see. If I have to, like I said, if I have to download patch 9 and then I have to download the early or the full version every time I want to switch between the two, it's not going to be worth it. I hope that is not the case. I hope that there's either an option that allows me to have both this early access version and the full version installed at the same time. But I don't know if that's going to work with the Larian launcher and Steam and how all of that's going to work together. I know we've gotten a lot of comments about continuing the Bard playthrough, and honestly, I would love to continue it. The Bard is it's a fascinating character for me to play. I would love to be able to finish the playthrough in early access. I just don't know if we'll be able to. So what I'll do, though, is once I find out when the game releases on Thursday, I will find out on Thursday and Friday how that interaction works. And I will put up a community post that explains the future of this Bard early access live stream. Again, I hope to continue it. I really want to do it myself as well for everybody who's interested in the Bard class. And especially for those people waiting on PS5, this would be another, 4 weeks of being able to see a Bard playthrough, which would be great for everybody, to be able to see some more of it, since they won't have the option to play the game yet. So a lot of benefits to being able to do it and give you guys a bonus live stream. I just don't know if it'll happen or not. So please pay attention to the community tab on my channel later on this week, and I will let you know what we do. So, again, as always, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me today. Without your support, none of this would be possible. This is Commander Jorval saying, until next time, fare thee well.